flooding is possible. Met Office rain warnings are also out across western parts of the UK. Into the evening time, the rain reaches the southeast, something a little blustery coming into the northwest. And the outlook for next week is more of the same. Sunny spells, scattered showers, temperatures largely above average.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's just 2 weeks left to grab your chance to be one of 2 big winners in our latest Great British giveaway. First, you'll win a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash to spend however you like. You'll also receive the very latest iPhone 16, and we'll send you on a shopping spree with £500 to spend in your favourite store. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Saturday night, and this is the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes, along with Will Kingston, Dr. Renee, Luca Watson, and Kai Wilshaw. Tonight on the show.
Is Rishi Sunak English?
Being a trans doctor shouldn't allow you to hide your past.
The agony aunt for the ECHR returns.
London councils using taxpayer money to take homes off the market.
Let's call the right wing what they are. Putin apologists.
Oh, here we go. It's 6 p.m, and this is the Saturday 5. Good evening, lads and lasses, theys and thems. Welcome to the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes, and what a week it's been. A feisty foreign dictator has been demanding influence, fame and fortune in foreign lands. Drunk on power, big on ego and mad on screen time. That's right, my friends. Australia's very own Willie Kingston joins us on the panel tonight. Willie has been outraged this week by Trump's anti-Zelensky remarks. I've never seen him so stiff and so rigid. Concerned about President Putin's potential through Europe. I'm sure we'll hear more about that from President Trump on this very show later on, live from CPAC. That is, talking about President Zelensky, not Willie. That would be odd. But speaking of President Zelensky, Keir Starmer says President Putin is a dictator, and he justifies that by saying he cancelled elections, he jailed opponents for online speech, he ignores the key concerns of voters, he drags a hesitant army into a futile war, he accesses the private data of your citizens and actually cozies up to the Chinese. I mean, he must be right on that front with all of those accolades. Oh, hang on a minute. My producer's just telling me actually they're all Starmer's accolades. Good Lord, who's the dictator then? And of course, Britain's most glamorous GP returns to the show tonight too. Unlike a rumoured Boris Johnson revival, it's a return I welcome, my friends. What Boris lacks in spine, strength and sabre-like wit, Dr. Renee has by the bucket. They say, my friends, that an apple a day keeps the doctor away, so I haven't touched the stuff in months. And making his debut on the show is Luca Watson. Now, what Luca lacks in years on this earth, he makes up in acerbic wit and feist. You should see his Twitter account. It's enough to make Elon Musk blush. And, of course, Wales's wokest warrior, Kai Wilshaw, is here. He needs the money. He says Rachel Reeves has a black hole to fill, which he's happy to do for her, and he has a new pronoun badge to buy when he's out on Soho. Now, Teletime addict Alex Armstrong is, of course, away, as you've probably guessed by now. He has issued a statement that we've got exclusively for you tonight. He says he's busy scheming how to make the Saturday 5 the Saturday 1, to which I have this to say. It really would be the Saturday 1 with him at the helm, one viewer each week. But Alex's schemes aren't the only sticky wicket we're facing tonight. Our poll opens at 6 p.m. and closes at 8:30 p.m. with a special reveal at 8:45. You can vote yourself. Head to gbnews.com/poll to vote for your favourite of the 5. And my friends, unlike Starmer's backdoor into your iPhone, there will be no covert skullduggery here. As ever, each panellist will get to make their arguments and then it's game on. Expect things to escalate faster than inflation after a Labour budget. And we want to hear from you. Drop us a line at gbnews.com/your-say. And don't forget, gbnews.com/poll is the link you need for your favourite 5. We'll bring you that result at 8:30. No pressure, Renee is bricking it. But before this descends into total chaos or Starmer locks one of us up, it's time for your Saturday Night News with Tatiana Sanchez.
Darren, thank you and good evening. The top stories. The Prime Minister has told President Zelensky he would discuss safeguarding Kyiv's sovereignty with US President Donald Trump as he reiterated the UK's ironclad support in a call this morning. And Sir Keir Starmer and the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen have also agreed Europe must step up for the good of the collective European security in a call today. Well, this comes as Starmer is expected to confirm a timeline to raise defence spending as he prepares to travel to Washington to meet Donald Trump next week. The Prime Minister will have to walk a tricky line stateside, balancing the UK's support for Ukraine with the need to keep the US on side. That's as President Trump has accused Emmanuel Macron and Sir Keir of doing nothing to end the war. Meanwhile, he also said Volodymyr Zelensky and Vladimir Putin need to get together and thinks a peace deal can be done. Meanwhile, hundreds of people have been gathering in support of Ukraine as they march to the Russian embassy in central London. The marchers earlier assembled at a statue of St. Vladimir, a national saint of Ukraine, near Holland Park. Protesters were seen carrying placards including "Stand with Ukraine," "Up to Putin and Trump," and "Don't betray Ukraine." Elsewhere, the 3 hostages released by terror group Hamas this morning have now entered into Israel, with the Israeli military reporting the 6th hostage has also been handed over and received by the military. Those returned are the last living hostages from a group of 33 being freed in the first stage of the ceasefire deal that took effect on the 19th of January. Israeli hostages Tal Shoham and Avira Mengistu were handed over to the Red Cross early this morning. In other news, a 3-year-old girl has died after being hit following a tram crash in Manchester. Police are currently in attendance on Mosley Street following the collision between a Metrolink tram and a white Mercedes-Benz van. Greater Manchester Police said the girl was taken to hospital after the crash, but she died from her injuries. No arrests have been made and police are appealing for witnesses. And 3 people have been arrested in connection with the disappearance of a man who went missing more than 20 years ago. Robert Scott Clive, known as Scott, was last seen on the 10th of October in 2002 following a night out in North Shields, North Tyneside, where he'd moved to from Scotland a few months earlier. A murder investigation was launched despite no body being found. Northumbria Police said it's now arrested 2 men in their 40s and 50s and a woman in her 40s on suspicion of murder. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More news from me in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers very much, Tatiana. My friends, it's Saturday night and you're with the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes and I can promise that you're in for a very lively show. We're going to crack on with tonight's first debate and, like Alex Armstrong, I'm going to abuse my position in the middle chair. Now, I want to kick you off by telling you about my second job. I'm in my second week as the ECHR's agony aunt. That's my official photograph there from my role. I'm dishing out Strasbourg wisdom for Britain's finest. I couldn't beat them, so I decided to join them for the croissants and the cash. Here's this week's legal lunacy. My first one. Dear Darren, I'm a Zimbabwean lass, lied for 20 years, may have faked an anti-government blog to stay, can I? And I replied, you cheeky genius. Judges say Zimbabwe won't buy your sob story, but stay nonetheless. Taxpayers will absolutely love that kind of creative genius. We could do with more of it. My next one. Dear Darren, Egyptian NHS doctor here. I tweeted Hamas cheer after October 7th. I won my appeal. Can I stay? And I say, of course, my pet. This is just political speech. This has nothing to do with glorifying terror. Stay. Your patients will cope. At least you're not one of those tweeting white far-right thugs opposed to the murder of young girls. Dear Darren, I'm a Sri Lankan paedophile. I'm gay and deportation is pretty risky. Can I stay? And I say, my friend, rainbow flag saves the day. Article 3, that's your ticket. Stay. You're our very own diversity dream. I couldn't be more happy to have you here. Dear Darren, I'm Sudanese. I claim I'm 16, but I have a receding hairline and a 5 o'clock shadow like Hagrid. Judges backed me. Can I stay? I say, you sly little fox. You're a bairn in Britain now. We'll have a council-funded Xbox to your bedroom ASAP. No questions asked. And my next one. Dear Darren, I'm Iraqi. Mum won't give me my ID to prove my age, so you can't deport me. Can I stay? Well, of course you can, you silly little blighter. Article 3 says no papers, no plane. You ain't going anywhere. Stay. Mum's the word, quite literally. Dear Darren, I'm Syrian, I've got PTSD and I groped a girl, but jail might trigger me. Can I stay here and free? And I say, you are a crafty little man, Hassan. PTSD trumps the assault of women in Britain. So of course you can stay. Women simply have to lock their doors a little tighter here in Britain. Silly girls. Dear Darren, this is my last one. We're Kurdish parents. Our kids dinghied to Dover. We're in Calais. Can we join them? What a genius plan. How cheeky. Article 8's your pass. Come on in. The Home Office can't stop you. What a clever scheme, I say that is, using your own kids as a passport pawn. Forget the dangerous journey in the English Channel. Makes sense. There you have it, my friends. ECHR gold galore. Rapists, paedophiles and Hamas cheerleaders staying firmly put. Common sense? Dead. Law-abiding Brits? out of luck. These are all genuine stories from British Asylum and Migration covered by the Telegraph newspaper, who've done a real service to the nation.
Well, we have to laugh or else we would cry, but we are being reminded literally as we speak of the very real consequences of what happens if you leave people in a country when they're not properly vetted and when they don't share your values. We've seen, I think it was an hour ago now, yet another attack by allegedly Islamic terrorist. I think at the moment what we're seeing is 1 dead and 2 police officers injured in France.
Yeah, police are investigating it as such.
As we speak. This is not an academic argument, and whilst we can laugh because it's so absolutely insane, the consequences across the UK and across Europe are there for everyone to see.
I mean, I think we got the ECHR because we wanted to stop countries actually acting against their own citizens. That was what it was for after the war.
In the most horrible way.
In the most horrific way imaginable. But we're not there anymore. That's not the society we're in. And it is now being abused to the point where British people are just hanging their heads in their hands. And I hate to think where they will go eventually when they just get so tired of these stories that we laughed at. But they're true stories.
Kai, you must be wanting to meet all of these people and shake their hands.
No, Darren, as you know, and as we talked about last week when you did this segment, these are minority cases, right?
Hang on, I had 7 last week, I've had 7 this week. How many is too many?
Sorry. The right wing, and the Telegraph included, by the way, will take these minority edge cases and make it seem like this represents a majority of the asylum cases and so on that we see in this country.
How do you prove it doesn't?
The chicken nuggets case from last week, right, which had you all running around like headless chickens. Yvette Cooper actually appealed herself last year. The Labour government is actually getting to grips with this crisis, and everybody agrees that it is a crisis.
Right.
And common sense people
Fine.
do agree.
I accept that point. So let me ask you a question. Will Labour ignore the ECHR if the ECHR come back and say chicken nuggets can stay?
No, we shouldn't ignore the ECHR.
So how
there are
what can
ways.
we do, Renee?
Look, in Germany and France, for instance, they haven't tied themselves up in knots. No, they haven't tied themselves up in knots with these ridiculous judgments around things like chicken nuggets. They wouldn't have gotten away with
Kai
that, right?
raises a good point, Luca. Luca is from half Italian.
We can reform the ECHR.
And Luca, in Italy, they ignore the ECHR far more than we do in this country. Are we just a soft-touch bunch of losers?
That's one way of putting it. I know France does it often, and they accept the fine, and they just pay the fine because they believe that's in their national interest to do so. The issue we have in this country, in most of the cases that you read out, would have been domestic cases. These were British judges, ultimately, who made these judgments for the most part, and they were using the Human Rights Act of 1998.
Which, of course, is
which is domestic legislation.
Yeah,
which Tony Blair embedded in our constitution.
So often, once you hear these most ridiculous cases of obviously dangerous people who obviously shouldn't be here anymore for the most spurious of reasons about chicken nuggets or whatever, yes, it comes back to Article 3, Article 8 from the ECHR, but the only reason that this country in particular seems to have so many of these cases is because of our own judiciary and our own domestic laws. So that's where we need to start.
Kai, would you accept that?
I accept that there needs to be reform and that there needs to be change.
The party, the political... Is this you coming out of
Anybody can see
Farage?
that. Look, this chicken nuggets case and all the cases that Darren keeps talking about are clearly ridiculous to so many sensible Britons.
I would like to put on record that Kai has just come out and said we need to vote reform.
This is the classic leftist. This is the classic leftist debating tactic. When they recognise something is ridiculous or wrong, they seek to minimise it. Kai, pedophiles are being kept in this country because activist judges think that international human rights law is more important than the children of the United Kingdom. Stop minimising it, mate. This is a serious threat to the United Kingdom.
Hang on.
You know that I don't agree with that.
All right, well, I want to actually give a case because yesterday there was a guy who was jailed up in Liverpool, in a court in Liverpool, and the judge said, we leave it up to the Home Office whether or not they deport you, that's what they decide. And this guy had been here illegally for over a decade. So, Kai, that you reducing this to a nothingness is doing a great disservice to the woman that this man raped.
Yeah. I'm not reducing it to a nothingness. And what I was about to say before Will interrupted me is that obviously the Labour Party and a great number of sensible Britons agree that this needs to be changed.
Okay.
But it's not an easy issue. It's not like chucking the ECHR out,
All right.
chucking the baby out with the bathwater. That's not the answer to this.
Okie doke, we're moving on. Now, as we said there, French President Emmanuel Macron has come out to condemn that horrible attack. He described the knife attack in Mulhouse on Saturday, which left 1 dead and 3 injured, as an Islamist terror attack. The suspect was arrested with an investigation underway. More on that story coming shortly. Now, but before we move on, my friends, just a reminder of that what actually happened is 1 dead, 3 in a terrorist attack. He shouted Allahu Akbar, so you get the gist there. Right, Kai, I believe it's your turn now.
It is. It is.
Oh, dear.
And it won't have missed anybody's attention that in a flurry of claims this week, Donald Trump upended the security alliance that we have known stretching back into the mists of time. And some of his claims are easily debunked. The idea that Volodymyr Zelensky is a dictator without elections, false. In fact, 73% of Ukrainians voted for him in the second round of his last elections. Now, the idea that he's down at a 4% approval rating is also false. In fact, more of the US think that Trump is a dictator rather than Zelensky. That's according to YouGov, by the way, not one of my Facebook polls, as Renee, I'm sure, would like to say. And him saying, you should never have started it, about the war in Ukraine. I mean, I don't think any of us really need to refute that fact. What fortuitous timing, then, this week, that the right wing, both in Europe and in the US, have been heaping praise on Donald Trump. And I'll give a few examples. In ARC, the right-wing conference here in London, while Trump was parroting the Kremlin's lines on Ukraine, Kemi Badenoch was, as I say, heaping praise on Trump, ripping into a grab bag of made-up grievances that might threaten Western civilization. Meanwhile, Reform, so obsessed with sovereignty and borders, so we're told, were tying themselves up in knots to respond to Trump's claims. Farage has called for a timetable for Ukrainian elections. When will that be? Might it be during a war where millions of their citizens have left? Julia Hartley-Brewer, of all people, ripped into Richard Tice when he failed to answer, what part of the UK would you give up if we were invaded? Now, there's a plethora of examples of right-wing grifters like Liz Truss and Suella Braverman who've been coming out with ridiculous statements in the last few days. Let's call it for what it is. The right wing are Putin apologists.
OK.
God, it took you a very long time to say that.
There's a lot of things that have happened in the last week. I just wanted to clarify.
Whilst I accept this, what part of the UK would you give up? This war for Ukraine is unwinnable unless the rest of Europe wants to put boots on the floor, which I certainly don't want any of our young men going there and dying after this. Secondly, I don't want another penny of our money going there after the last billions that we've sent for 3 years. We let Putin do this when he took Crimea. We let him do it. We said nothing. We said nothing when he took Crimea. You promote what you permit. It is time for a peace deal, and Ukraine are going to have to give up a bit of land.
All right, Will?
I think two things can be true at the same time. Everything Renee has just said is right. I also have to agree with Kai, and I think sensible people on the right, like Douglas Murray, like Konstantin Kisin, like Winston Marshall, have come out and said basically what Renee has said, but also, to your point, Kai, what Trump has said is morally indefensible and factually incorrect. Yes. And I think we can agree both of those things. I think this has actually drawn out many people on the right that blindly follow anything that Donald Trump says. We shouldn't be treating politics like sport where you blindly support your team. You should look at each policy and each comment on its merits.
Luca, what I would say to this is quite bluntly that I'm so bored of talking about it, and that actually, frankly, I think if people like Kai spent enough time focusing on issues that occur in this country, that Britain would be a lot better place. All we hear about is Palestine, Gaza, Ukraine, when actually there are a hell of a lot of issues going on in this country. Kai, you went on for 10 minutes. Can we just bring in Luca?
But on that point, it's connected, because remember, a few years ago, everyone was complaining about inflation, and one of the main drivers of inflation was the war in Ukraine. So I don't think we can just sit back and say it's happening over there, it's far away, it doesn't affect us. It does affect us. Within the global interconnected economy that we rely upon, something that happens in Ukraine or even Israel will affect us.
You're 23.
Yeah.
Would you be happy to fight for Ukraine in Ukraine?
No, and I don't think anyone is expecting me to. I don't think
It's the only way we're going to win that war.
Yeah, exactly. I think
Darren, please.
Okay, tell me.
Peacekeeping force, as we've had in Kosovo for over a decade, is very different to a fighting force. Well,
Tell me how it comes to an end. You just think we send a peacekeeping force tomorrow and that's it, it's all over? Don't be ridiculous.
No, I'm not saying it's all over.
Right.
The proposal that we're seeing at the minute, and regrettably, because Trump seems to want to freeze the battle lines where they are. Now, Europe is proposing, and Keir Starmer's proposing, and thank God for Keir Starmer's leadership, he is proposing that there's an European peacekeeping force that is stationed across that frozen battle line. That is not the same as having fighting soldiers dying for their country.
Okay.
And the characterisation of that is also pretty traitorous, frankly.
All right, well, traitorous Renee. All right, now, my friends, it's time for the Great British Giveaway. If you want to be one of 2 new winners, each with a new iPhone, shopping vouchers and £10,000 in tax-free cash, here's the details that you need.
Don't miss your chance to be one of 2 big winners in our latest Great British Giveaway, as we have 2 prize bundles that have to be won. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Still to come tonight, Dr. Renee talks about trans doctors reportedly having disciplinary records hidden from NHS authorities simply for being trans. It gives you a new lease of life, apparently. And Luca takes on a strange development in Britain's housing crisis. Who's it going to? Can you guess? But next, Will gives his 2 cents on the bizarre row over whether Rishi Sunak is English. Is he? And is it a question you should even be asking? You're with the Saturday 5. We're live on GB News.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We were talking earlier about the issue of Siri listening to you. Well, it's not just your own conversations being sort of harvested for data. But it's a problem with AI. So what seems to have happened yesterday is that Apple issued a alert saying that Luke Littler had won the darts before he had. I mean, imagine what would, if he then gone on to lose, how that would have looked. I mean, obviously, because he went on to win, at least they got the story right. But before it had happened. So what it seems to happen is that the AI farms existing stories. And what it has done, that's the alert. We can see the alert there. Now, and it also claiming that Brazilian tennis player Rafael Nadal had come out as gay, when actually a different Brazilian tennis player was actually mentioned in the original story. So what it does is you see that's branded as BBC Sport. What the Apple AI system does is it farms alerts that it thinks people are getting from the source, and then summarises them into one alert.
It looks to me like
you would assume, OK, the BBC are reporting this.
Absolutely.
Or so the BBC News might be saying something else.
So it could happen to any news organisation.
This has highlighted a massive issue. I mean, having editorial judgment and quality control, because if this is going on, it's just contributing to the flow of misinformation. And we know that this is a problem on social media, people reporting false things. But if it seems to come from trusted news sources, that is a massive issue in credibility. I mean, if you had something like Reuters, who's a big news provider, doing this, you could hold people accountable, you could make changes, but when it's the AI doing it, I mean, what do? You're going to have to reprogram it in some way.
And if you just lost control, if you're a news source, you've lost control of what goes out, because it basically farms it, puts your logo on it and sends it out even when it's nonsense.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. I've had a message in from Big Steve, who says he really, really wants to get some time with Willie. So we need to go to our next debate, I think, right away. We can't keep Big Steve waiting. Will, take it away.
Thank you. I met Steve the other day. Cheers, Steve. Is Rishi Sunak English? It's a question that blew up on social media this week. It migrated into the mainstream media and it's made its way into more than a few pubs in this great country. It began in a conversation between Fraser Nelson, former Spectator editor, and Konstantin Kisin, host of the Trigonometry podcast. I think we have a clip of that debate ready to go. Let's roll that clip.
I would say that Rishi Sunak is as English as Tizer and Wyferns, right? He is absolutely English. He was born and bred here. And I wouldn't say that the colour of his skin makes him any
He's
less.
a brown Hindu. How is he English?
Because he's born and bred here.
So by being born here, you become English, in your opinion?
Yeah.
In some respects, this was a silly debate because you had one person looking at Englishness as being about ethnicity and you had one other person looking at Englishness as being about a national group. You can interpret the word both ways. But this is the type of debate that happens when we stop talking about English culture, which is the most important interpretation of the word. This is how it works. You have the multiculturalism set who basically say that anyone who sets foot on this land instantly becomes English, and then you have elements of the right responding by saying, well, no, you have to be white to be English effectively. We need to stop this debate and we need to start talking about what we used to talk about, which is what does English culture mean? What is our shared history? What are the values? What are the customs? What are the norms? What are the behaviours that we think make up being English? And until we have that, we're going to keep having these conversations which are peripheral. But you know what? People have been scared off that conversation by the multiculturalism set, by the diversity is our strength set, by those people who say that being English effectively means you need to be ashamed of your colonial past. It also means that we're going to need to get some guts, because once we have the conversation around these are the values that we think being English, there are a lot of cultural enclaves in this country which live their lives in direct contradiction to those values. And you know what we're going to have to say? We're going to say, if we believe in shared English values, if you don't abide by them, you are not welcome here. Ultimately, this isn't about ethnicity, this isn't about a nationality as much as it is about English culture. That's the debate we're running away from. That's the debate that we need to be having right now.
Why then do you think he asked the question? Why did Konstantin ask the question in that trigonometry clip?
I think he was trying to be cheeky first and foremost. And I think because the left have promoted this double standard where they've said, well, you should be able to take pride in being from a black ethnic group. You should be able to take pride in being ethnically Chinese. But if you're ethnically white, that is something that you need to be ashamed about. So what I would say is that they can't have a double standard. Either dump the whole ethnic identity politics thing or say that ethnic white, Anglo-Saxon identity is equally as valued as those other ones.
But does anyone on the panel think that if I were to be born in Mumbai or in China, that people would view me as ethnically Chinese.
No, I think eyebrows would be raised.
Especially mine. But is that not a fair... Because some people are commenting in saying it's a racist question to ask. Well, is it?
No, it's not, because it's one of those words that can be interpreted as ethnicity, as culture, or as nationhood, and they just interpret it in different ways.
So I think Rishi Sunak likes cricket, he likes all of these things. He likes the cultural aspect, right?
So I mean, look, I saw that interview. My initial result was, of course, he's British. Of course he is. But I think Will is absolutely right. The problem is that we are too scared as white, indigenous British people to define what makes us British. If we had these set of values that people could live up to, then we wouldn't have any of this debate, and everybody could fit it, whether they were brown or white.
Luca?
Yeah, I think it's interesting that he was asked specifically about is he English rather than British, because we often hear about British values and some of the things you mentioned there, the values and customs that are associated with the history of this country, stuff like democracy, rule of law, these kind of things. But English is different because clearly it's a subgroup within Britain. And so I think it's a difficult one, because is there a set of English values which are really different to British values at all? Does it even make sense to use two terms?
You would have been an apple of your mother's eye, I think, at this point. But Emily Thornberry, do you remember? Did you see? You've read that? Yes.
Yeah.
You would have been at school when this happened.
White van man.
The white van, a man who had the St George's flag across his house. Now, I don't think she would have said that had it been the Union Jack outside the house. So is there a problem with talking about Englishness in general?
Well, I think so. And I think
among the left.
Yeah, and I think also one of the differences between England and, say, Scotland and Wales is that there is no political representation in England, unlike the devolved assemblies. And so there aren't English nationalist parties. And so there's no real explicit political representation of Englishness.
Yeah.
Kai?
Luca, that's quite different to what you said on Twitter only the other day.
Whoa.
You responded to this debate saying, is Rishi Sunak English? By nationality, no. By ethnicity, no. Culturally, maybe.
Somewhat. I said somewhat.
Somewhat. No,
I'd say it's the same. The same for me, by the way, as well. I
understood that. But Will, you said this is the kind of debate that happened when we stopped talking about English culture. No, it's not the kind of debate that happens when we stop talking about English culture. It's a debate that happens when we have a polarised society where the right wing decides that it's acceptable to vilify ethnic groups who have been here for decades, and to vilify people who are trying to come to this country legally and claim that they are antithetical to English and British.
Do you know why it's polarised?
You said also it's not about ethnicity.
We don't have time for the second one. We don't have time.
It definitely is about ethnicity, because in the interview, he says, oh, no, Rishi Sunak is a brown Hindu. Why does ethnicity come into it? Well, it was brought into it by this interview.
It is polarised because we don't have a shared set of English values and customs to rally around. That is where the polarisation starts and ends. Thank you, Darren.
And that's when I say brief response. That's what it looks like, by the way.
Sharp and snappy.
Right, thank you very much. Now, still to come tonight, Luca wants to know why councils are playing ping-pong with buying and selling social housing in the midst of a housing crisis. I wonder where it's going. But next, Dr Renee addresses worrying reports that trans doctors are avoiding having to actually hand over their disciplinary records to the NHS. Is that really fair? Well, Dr Renee now self-identifies as a man. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Eastern parts of the Mediterranean experiencing below average temperatures and also some heavy showers at times. These are set to affect Athens and also Santorini, but as we move our way westwards across the Mediterranean, largely mild, largely settled. There are a few showers affecting Nice and parts of the Balearic Islands, but elsewhere across Spain, Portugal, Madeira and also Tenerife, largely settled, and it remains that way as we head into the new week. Sunny spells and the best of the temperatures, and a gradual improvement in temperatures across Santorini.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Lee Anderson's Real World, Fridays from 7 p.m.
Getting into medicine at a very early age, you had an interest when you were really, really young, didn't you?
I did. I decided to go to medicine when I was 8. And that was based on the stories my father used to tell me about my grandfather, who I never met, because my grandfather died when he was 11.
Yeah.
And he was in the military, and he was stationed up in the Himalayas, and he was a doctor in the military. And not only did he serve in the military, but he also served his patients. And he served them to the degree where he would go out and he'd take them supplies, and he'd really look after them and make sure that they were not just well, but could live and survive. And it was on a day when he was out there helping his patients. There was a storm up in the Himalayas.
Wow.
And he was out there taking blankets and clothes and food up to them. And on the way back, as he was coming down the Himalayas, there was a landslide which took his Jeep over the edge, and he perished in that. So he gave his life to his service. And it was these stories about my grandfather, what he did and how he helped people, that really inspired me to follow in his footsteps. Not necessarily to go into the military, but to go into medicine.
But he's left a wonderful legacy, because fast forward, you came to this country when you was 4, and you've studied medicine.
Yep.
And you do, we were talking earlier about DNA. You're looking at DNA, looking at people's DNA. You can do profiles on people, predict. Well, you can actually say with some accuracy where they've lived in the past, what jobs they've done, and what medically may happen to them in the future.
Yeah. And I think, over the last, we've been looking at the gene. There was a Human Genome Project last century, which finished.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
It's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. We've got triggered tantrums still to come, and another Meghan Markle PR disaster, and why Kai hates being called progressive. I can think of other words I could use. But next, London councils are looking to buy back council leasehold properties off the people who bought them. Why? Well, you'll find out very shortly, but I do want to bring you, my friends, this breaking news, which is that the Pope is indeed declining rapidly, we're finding out tonight, and that the Vatican are arguing that he's more unwell than he was yesterday, when we were told the doctor had said he would not be suffering so badly that we would risk him losing his life. They added that he had suffered from a prolonged asthma-like respiratory crisis, using the word crisis there, so that's pretty bad. Earlier in the day, the Vatican statement said the Pope, who has been treated in hospital for double pneumonia, was alert, but added that the prognosis for him remains guarded. So we're getting conflicting statements, because yesterday it was something totally different, but it fluctuated throughout the day, and now we're hearing that the situation is worsening. Now, of course, let's not forget there are billions of Catholics throughout the world. This is going to be very distressing and upsetting.
Devastating. But he's 88 years old, he's not very mobile, he's in a wheelchair, he's got pneumonia. Pneumonia is a killer for old people, we know that, so people should be prepared.
Yeah, I'm really taken aback by the strength of that language. Really taken aback.
Yeah. Are you Catholic?
No.
I sounded like I was doing an inquisition. many years ago, my ancestors probably did ask people that question. But, right, OK, up next then.
It's me?
Yes, take it away, Dr. Renee.
OK, I have a GMC number. I worked damn hard to get it, and the day after I qualified as a doctor, I booked my appointment at the GMC offices to go along with my ID and proof of the many exams I'd taken over many years to get that number. That number is like my ID number in the NHS. It allows people to look at me, my history, have I been good, have I been bad, and it stays with me for life. Oh, apart from when I change to be a man tomorrow, I'll get a new one. So everything's fine. So yes, it's true. Doctors who change their sex get a new number. And in so doing, any misdemeanours of their past disappear, they're expunged just like their genitals on their record. So when I am a man, my new employer won't be able to see if I've had any disciplinary hearings, if I've had an alcohol or drug problem, if I've needed supervision, or even if I've harmed a patient. If a female patient wants to know that I'm really, definitely, certainly a woman, they won't be able to find out for sure. In fact, a trans woman will get a new number, and on the outside in their dress they'll look like a woman, perhaps, but under their dress they'll have 2 veg and meat. So this has just been seen recently with Dr. Beth Upton in Scotland, who is a trans doctor, a female trans, but is really a man, who insisted that a nurse of 35 years shared their changing room, and they were too uncomfortable to do that. And that nurse, Peggy, lost her job as a result. It's similar to a trans patient in the NHS who actually gets a new NHS number, expunging all details of their real biological sex. So as a doctor, I might be looking for a prostate cancer in that person and come across a set of ovaries. It's a disgrace. It puts patients at risk. It denies them the right to choose the sex of the doctor, and the GMC is supposed to be here to actually help patients, to actually keep them safe, and to let them know when their doctors have actually not been behaving well. So they are failing on all fronts, and this is a disgrace.
This is one of those stories where your jaw just drops. Just to clarify, do you think this is, say, some just IT system problem, or is this a genuine,
this is
conscious,
a policy.
ideological
This is a policy.
Unbelievable.
We've got a shorter amount of time than we'd have liked because of that sad news coming in from the Vatican. But I've got to, for balance, Dr. Renee, unfortunately bring in Kai Wilshaw. So, Kai Wilshaw, would you please try and justify how it can be right that NHS doctors who self-identify as a fantasy sex are able to have their records expunged?
It's not right. And nobody is saying it's right.
I feel a butt coming here.
Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, he wishes, has already said he's looking into this.
But the GMC says
have made an error, and this is an admin error, no more, no less.
What do you mean it's an admin error?
Clearly, well, because for some reason in the system, when a doctor changes their sex, when a doctor changes their sex, they had a different number, right? Okay, idiocy, and that's being changed. But again, and the second point I'd make, and the last one, is the 62 trans doctors...
It's actually 77 now that we know about.
77 trans doctors are caught by this, and by this snafu, this admin snafu. How many doctors are regulated by the GMA? It's 350,000.
Can I say this?
On focusing on these tiny issues
I would like to answer you.
Ridiculous.
You are incorrect. The GMC has not changed this. They have no plans to change it.
I never said that.
You did. And it's not an admin error. It's a policy of the GMC. They already made statements about it 2 years ago that you would not be able to see if somebody was previously a different biological sex. So everything you've just said is incorrect.
That is unbelievable.
And Luca, I mean, we live in you see stories like this all the time. There was NHS nurses in Darlington who have been chastised by the healthcare system for refusing to share a changing room with biological men and refusing to call them biological women. You just hear about these things all the time. The NHS should be focusing on one thing and one thing only, and that is healthcare, not biological fantasy.
Well, the problem is with something like trans, it's very interlinked with the healthcare system, so you can't really disassociate the two. And I think what's interesting is that not even you are willing to defend this. Clearly, no one seems to be willing to defend this kind of stuff. And we saw in the US how toxic the issue became for the Democrats more generally. And I think it's going to become very toxic for Labour if they don't get their act together, if they don't... Well, You say it's a few cases. You say it's a few cases. You know, why is the system allowing for few cases like this? If a system is well run,
you said the same thing about the rapists that are coming
error,
up here as well.
snafu, honestly.
It's funny how he finds a few cases here and there. Yeah.
But I'm not.
All
but
right.
you're wrong.
We're going to move on from Kai and. Coming up, my friends, London councils are looking to buy back council leasehold properties off the people who bought them. Can you have a think? Why is this going on? You're with the Saturday 5. We're live on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. It's going to turn much more unsettled through Sunday. Outbreaks of rain, strong winds as well, could be some local disruption, but it is staying on the mild side. A brief ridge of high pressure through Saturday, but that's being replaced by this wet and windy weather moving in from the Atlantic, bringing strong winds, outbreaks of rain across many parts through the day tomorrow. So a quiet end to Saturday, some low cloud mist and murk developing as we move into the early hours. But later on in the night, we'll see outbreaks of rain, stronger winds moving into parts of Northern Ireland, western Scotland. Temperatures rising through the night, 5, 6, 7 degrees to start Sunday morning. A wet start across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland. Elsewhere, dry but quite murky and cloudy. But let's look at the details for Sunday morning. Heavy rain across western parts, still drier towards the east. Some bright spells across Shetland, but the heavy rain pushing in quite quickly through the morning. Widespread rain across Northern Ireland. Wind gusts of 60, 70 miles an hour through the day here. Dry start for eastern parts of England, but wetter across Wales, the West Country, as the rain moves in. Some sunny spells across southeast England. Here it will stay driest for longest through the day, but elsewhere turning increasingly unsettled. The rain could lead to some localised flooding as rainfall totals build up through into the afternoon and evening time, particularly across the high ground in the west. Showers following into Northern Ireland, western Scotland later on in the day, and the rain eventually reaching southeast England. But a blustery day for all. Met Office warnings out for wind and rain, so do stay up to date here. Temperatures again in double figures. Rain continues to flirt with southeastern parts on Monday initially, but it does clear out the way, and it's then a blustery day, sunshine and showers across the country. Some of them on the heavy side at times. In between, though, plenty of sunshine and temperatures just feeling a little fresher, and it stays unsettled through Tuesday and into Wednesday with further showers and rain and temperatures nearer to average. See you soon.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Now, we've got a debut in with the new. Right, it's Kai. Kai? It's Luca, even. Thank God it's not. Not again. My blood pressure, my heart can't take it. Right, OK. Luca, take it away.
Yes, thank you. Well, I'm going to be talking about the fact that this week I saw that Tower Hamlets, which is a council in East London, put out an advert that they were looking to snap up some properties. So they were looking to buy up houses which are currently on the private market in order to turn them into social housing. Now, this isn't just Tower Hamlets, it's something that's happening all over the capital and was part of Sadiq Khan, who's London mayor. It was part of his campaign to be re-elected. He said that he would be allocating funds from City Hall to local councils so that they could buy up housing, which is currently available in the private sector, and convert it into social housing. Now, this is part of a greater scheme to increase the number of social houses, but unfortunately, Mayor Khan has done such a terrible job of building new houses that they're now relying on existing houses and simply transferring them from private to social. Now, I think there is a case for social housing if it leads to certain social benefits. If, for example, it's given in priority to those who form important functions in the city, for nurses, school teachers and so on, or perhaps for those who have long-standing ties to the area who would otherwise be unable to afford to continue living there. However, we see from the data that came out in the 2021 census that that is not what London's social housing is currently being used for. Social housing tenants in London are disproportionately economically inactive, and also we saw that around half of all lead tenants in London social housing were born abroad. That's right, they weren't even born in the area, they weren't even born in the country, they were born outside of the UK. So I put it that this is not a good use of taxpayer money. This is not a way to efficiently allocate such a scarce and important resource in this country's most important economic engine.
So, Luca, would you want to reduce levels of migration to this country?
Well, that's part of it. I think one of the reasons that there is such pressure on social housing is the population has boomed, especially in the last few years, but also in the last few decades. So that would definitely help with housing as a whole.
Renee, you've got experience in this game, especially in London.
Living in social housing.
So in tenants, I think it's really, really interesting, because if these houses are tenanted, it's going to take them 2 years via the courts doing everything properly to get the tenants out anyway, because the system is so loaded now against the landlord. But what worries me about this policy is it's just like we don't drill for our own oil anymore, but then we ship it across the Atlantic from America. This is exactly the same. We're not building houses, so we just take some more off the market and give it to the people in social housing.
I agree. But, Will, what I would say is that this is a betrayal of Maggie Thatcher's legacy, because I think selling off council housing to those who were living in them was give them security, stability, something to nurture. It gave them ownership.
Aspiration.
Quite literally, aspiration. And now we're saying, well, you know, we've got 1 million people coming to the country in 1 year, so they need somewhere to go. We're going to have to buy it all back.
Yeah, that's right, because the left doesn't actually really care about the poor anymore as much as they care about anyone who wasn't born in this country. And not people like me who actually contribute to the economy, people who don't contribute to the economy, who didn't come here with a visa. That ultimately is what this comes down to.
Thank you, Will. Kai?
This is a total myth. This policy, and I talked to somebody who actually helped develop the policy, is all about housing people who would have otherwise been in temporary accommodation. Now, what it does is save councils money, keeps private renting families in their homes. So would you actually rather councils waste money, spending money on hotels, for instance, or actually to build up an asset that they can borrow against in the future?
OK,
Well, you said build up, that's the point. They're not building anything, they're just buying things that already exist.
That's not Tower Hamlets Council's fault. That's not Sadiq Khan's fault.
Well, whose fault is it?
Well, speaking of Tower Hamlets, a spokesperson from the council has said this: the Tower Hamlets Council buyback programme is a voluntary scheme for leaseholders who wish to sell. No one will be evicted or forced to sell their property. The scheme aims to repurpose these properties for social housing. Benefits include securing market value for the property, no estate agent fees and no chain. OK, loads more to come tonight on the show, including the big interview ahead of the massive German elections tomorrow. Plus, why is Apple making our data more vulnerable to cyber threats and foreign influence? Don't forget, we'll be bringing you Donald Trump's CPAC speech live. See you after this.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. It's going to turn much more unsettled through Sunday. Outbreaks of rain, strong winds as well. Could be some local disruption, but it is staying on the mild side. A brief ridge of high pressure through Saturday, but that's being replaced by this wet and windy weather moving in from the Atlantic, bringing strong winds, outbreaks of rain across many parts through the day tomorrow. So a quiet end to Saturday. Some low cloud mist and murk developing as we move into the early hours, but later on in the night we'll see outbreaks of rain, stronger winds moving into parts of Northern Ireland, western Scotland. Temperatures rising through the night, 5, 6, 7 degrees to start Sunday morning. A wet start across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland. Elsewhere, dry but quite murky and cloudy. But let's look at the details for Sunday morning. Heavy rain across western parts, still drier towards the east. Some bright spells across Shetland, but the heavy rain pushing in quite quickly through the morning. widespread rain across Northern Ireland. Wind gusts of 60, 70 miles an hour through the day here. Dry start for eastern parts of England, but wetter across Wales, the West Country, as the rain moves in. Some sunny spells across southeast England. Here it will stay driest for longest through the day, but elsewhere turning increasingly unsettled. The rain could lead to some localised flooding as rainfall totals build up through into the afternoon and evening time, particularly across the high ground in the west. Showers following into Northern Ireland, western Scotland later on in the day, and the rain eventually reaching southeast England. But a blustery day for all. Met Office warnings out for wind and rain, so do stay up to date here. Temperatures again in double figures. Rain continues to flirt with southeastern parts on Monday initially, but it does clear out the way, and it's then a blustery day, sunshine and showers across the country, some of them on the heavy side at times. In between, though, plenty of sunshine and temperatures just feeling a little fresher, and it stays unsettled through Tuesday and into Wednesday with further showers and rain and temperatures nearer to average. See you soon.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Don't miss your chance to be one of 2 big winners in our latest Great British giveaway, as we have 2 prize bundles that have to be won. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that.
When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
It's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Saturday night, and this is the Saturday 5. I don't know why I'm singing. I'm Darren Grimes, along with Will Kingston, Dr. Renee, Luca Watson, and Guy Wilshaw. Plenty more to come tonight, including my very own mental breakdown and this.
My show is coming out, which I'm so excited for, and also my business, which I think there's been a lot of curiosity about.
Well, I don't know what that was, but it's 7 p.m. and this is the Saturday 5. Still to come tonight, Darren Grimes downs an entire bottle of wine live on air. And Donald Trump is expected to take the stage any moment now in Maryland. On your screen, right this instant, if you're listening on radio, it's Donald Trump moments ago setting off for that very speech from the White House. There he was on the White House lawn. And live right now from CPAC is that Georgia Maloney?
Georgia?
Yeah,
Georgia?
It's Georgia Maloney. I can't see with my little eyes.
Yeah. She's had a hit.
But
Got the
Luca
flag
can
behind
speak
her.
fluent Italian. Well, that to me, I'm not going to ask you to translate for us, but I assume she is speaking in Italian because they've got the subtitles on.
Maybe because she's Italian.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yes. But you could be speaking in English, Renee.
Well, she's one of the only Italian politicians who can speak decent English.
Oh, she is
so,
speaking
yeah.
in English. I nearly said her name there. Producer says she is indeed speaking in English.
There you go.
Now, this comes amidst the negotiations on how to deal with the Ukraine war and also how the government has potentially made Apple users more vulnerable to cyber threats. I wonder what on earth's going to be said there. But myself and Kai are going to face off on that very issue in the Saturday Scrap.
Oh, Lord.
Then we'll be answering your questions in Ask the Five. Please do send them through to gbnews.com/yoursay. And don't forget to vote for your favourite 5 at gbnews.com/poll. Dr. Renee is steaming ahead on 34%. Darren Grimes is on 27%.
Oh, that must hurt to say.
Will Kingston is I'm in it for the team. Will Kingston says 24% and Luca is on 14%. That's very good for us.
Kai?
Kai, 1%. 1%. The vote, which is actually going to be the Labour Party's overall vote at the next election. The vote will close at 8:30 p.m. I can't wait to see Dr. Renee be crowned. First of all, speaking of Queens, it's your Saturday Night News with Tatiana Sanchez.
Darren, thank you very much. The top stories this evening, some breaking news this hour that Pope Francis has had blood transfusions and is suffering more than yesterday. That's according to the Vatican. In an update this evening, the 88-year-old has been in hospital at the Gemelli Hospital in Rome for more than a week, being treated for double pneumonia and chronic bronchitis. Well, in an update this evening, the Vatican said the Holy Father's condition continues to be critical, adding that this morning he presented with a prolonged asthmatic respiratory crisis and he required blood transfusions for a sickness associated with pneumonia. Doctors just yesterday had said he was not out of danger, but was not also at risk of death. We will, of course, keep you across this story and bring you any further updates just as soon as we get them. And in that other breaking news this evening, one person has died and 2 police officers have been injured after a knife attack in the French city of Mulhouse. The suspect was arrested at the scene. The man injured 2 police officers seriously, one in the neck and one in the chest. A bystander tried to intervene and was killed. The suspect is a 37-year-old Algerian who was subject to a deportation order, as we understand it, because he was on a terrorism watch list, according to a local prosecutor. The prosecutor has opened a terrorist inquiry because the suspect reportedly shouted Allahu Akbar. The incident took place at a demonstration in the support of the Congo, where the police officers were on patrol. More on that breaking story as we get it. Elsewhere, the Prime Minister has told President Zelensky he would discuss safeguarding Kyiv's sovereignty with US President Donald Trump as he reiterated the UK's ironclad support in a call this morning. And Sir Keir Starmer and the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen have also agreed that Europe must step up for the good of the collective European security, also in a call today. It comes as Starmer's expected to confirm a timeline to raise defence spending as he prepares to travel to Washington to meet Donald Trump next week. The Prime Minister will have to walk a tricky line stateside, balancing the UK's support for Ukraine with the need to keep the US on side. That's as President Trump has accused Emmanuel Macron and Sir Keir of doing nothing to end the war. Meanwhile, he also said Volodymyr Zelensky and Vladimir Putin need to get together and thinks a peace deal can be done. Now, police are appealing for witnesses after a van driver fled the scene of a crash with a tram that killed a 3-year-old girl in Manchester city centre. The incident happened on Mosley Street in that collision between Metrolink tram and a white Mercedes-Benz van. Greater Manchester Police said the girl was taken to hospital after that crash, but she died from her injuries. No arrests have yet been made. And finally, England regain the Calcutta Cup after beating Scotland 16-15 in their Six Nations match at the Allianz Stadium. Scotland's Finn Russell missing all 3 kicks he had at goal. England's win ends Scotland's 4-match winning run in the fixture. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. More from me in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
It's Saturday night and you're with the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes and I can promise that you're in for another very lively hour. Before we get to that big interview, Dick has written in and says, do we need this popularity poll every week? Do egos need massage? And Dick, I think you'll find it's the other way around. Egos are toppled in this poll. And Kez says, Darren, that's not a very nice poll to run. Well, Kez, I think this is a really dastardly move by GB News management to create a pay scale based on the popularity on the poll. Yes, so Renee's in for a bumper pay packet.
I've actually heard that Alex Armstrong has a team of Russian bots voting for everyone except Darren as the next play in his
I think that's right.
likely.
He's built a back door in the iPhone already. That's what he's done. Right, OK, we'll crack on with tonight's big interview. Now, German voters are heading to the polls tomorrow to decide who they want to lead the next government. The Conservative Christian Democrats are expected to become the biggest party in power, but there's also been a rise in support for the called far-right Alternative for Germany party, the AfD. Now, the popularity of the AfD comes as leaders place immigration, rightly, at the top of concerns, but the economy as well. And Olaf Scholz, his centre-left coalition, totally collapsing like one of my attempts at a Yorkshire pudding. So to discuss this, I'm delighted to welcome a journalist from Hamburg, Rob Hyde, who has been in Germany for, I think, something like, what, Rob, 20 years now? I don't wish to age you, my friend. I don't wish to age you and be impertinent, but you've been there a long time. Rob, can I ask a question? Before I get to... I want to touch ever so slightly on what's taking place in France, but can I ask you, as someone who's been out in the continent for 2 decades, how much has Europe changed? And would you necessarily say it's been for the better? Because I don't know whether or not it's just confirmation bias, but it feels to me like these absolutely abhorrent attacks seem to be a weekly occurrence.
It really is, and it's what can you say other than how awful it is? I mean, you've just heard the news about this Algerian man there in Mulhouse. Last night in Berlin at the Holocaust Museum, there was a stabbing. We're only days away from what happened in Munich. That was only also a couple of weeks from Aschaffenburg. That was just before Magdeburg at Christmas. Before that, we had Solingen. And I'm just focusing now on Germany with that little bit about Mulhouse. So if you expand the concept to the rest of Europe, it's appalling.
It is appalling. And I mean, given the attack in France where the police are invested, and President Macron has suggested that it's an Islamic attack as well, and given the over recent weeks, I feel like we're becoming, Rob, so desensitized to all of this because it just happens so often that we say it so flippantly, like it's popping to the shops to buy something from Aldi. Do you see what I did there, German shop? And I can't stand it, Rob, frankly. It fills my heart with absolute dread.
Yeah, no, I hear you completely. There was a piece by Robert Hardman in the Daily Mail. I thought it was very good, and he said how it kind of reminded him how in Northern Ireland in the Troubles, the atrocities became the norm, and how tragic it is when things get to that stage. And as I just said, as you just said, it does seem to be weakling.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I mean, the question is then, how does this impact the electoral makeup at the election tomorrow? Because already people are saying, well, what's going on right now in France is a win for Marine Le Pen, and what they're saying in the German context is that this will help the AfD, which is a grim reality.
Yeah, I mean, I think the AfD is going to do well. I mean, the polls have put it kind of to 21%. It could go a little higher. And yeah, definitely the theme of migration is something that they've been pushing for some time. And I would argue it's also forced the other parties to toughen up.
Yes.
The CDU are going to win it alongside their Bavarian sister party, the CSU. They're probably going to get 28 to 31%. What's interesting, though, is what's going to happen then, because there was this talk of having the grand coalition of the SPD, the Social Democrats, under the floundering leader, the Chancellor Olaf Scholz. But I mean, that possibly is also not going to work, and you probably are going to have the Greens in there. But the Bavarian sister party, the CSU, who are with the CDU, they've said we don't want the Greens.
I'm not surprised. Have you seen energy policy in Germany? It's nuttier than a fruitcake.
It is. I mean, they became very unpopular.
I thought I'd stunned you into silence there, Rob. Now, the other thing that I would say in this context is you're right to say that actually this is sort of stiffened the resolve of many people on immigration. And by the way, earlier I said it's a grim reality that people are voting for the AfD and Marine Le Pen. I didn't mean they're grim for doing so, just to be absolutely clear. But Kai, as a man who would see that as grim, I wonder, the left in Germany, as Rob rightly identifies, are even toughening their stances on immigration. Do you think Europe has to admit that they've got it wrong?
I think there is...
Angela Merkel, for example.
There is a way to accept that migration policies could be different, but also to still be a welcoming continent. And my question actually would be, if we look across the sea at the US and see the rhetoric, the vile rhetoric, I think, coming from people like Elon Musk and Donald Trump, who have put their weight behind actually the AfD, is that popular in Europe? Is that kind of approach going to work? Because actually, if you look at many voters in Germany and France and the UK, actually they're put off by that kind of support.
Let's ask Rob.
Rob, is that popular in Europe, Elon Musk supporting the AfD?
I do think definitely amongst the youth in particularly in East Germany, it's been incredibly popular. So he turned up in Halle an der Saale. It was kind of the former industrial stronghold of communist East Germany, and he basically said, "Look, you young Germans, you need to start feeling better about yourself." And obviously that's something which they really like to hear. And I think he is seen as very sort of cool and optimistic and giving them sort of hope and that type of thing. Yes, I do.
And they had, correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, but Tesla have a big presence is it in East Germany where they're a big part?
Yeah, just outside Berlin,
Yeah. See, I'm a fount of knowledge. Will.
Rob, the AfD have been labelled as far right by much of the mainstream media and their political opponents. To what extent is that characterisation fair? And perhaps for British viewers and listeners, to what extent are they similar to Reform, and perhaps how are they different?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, I think hard right is kind of fair. An awful lot of their policies are things which I think are shared on this channel. So taking a firm stance on uncontrolled mass immigration, cynical towards aspects of the EU or woke ideology, that sort of thing. All of that, I think you can work with. That being said, and I think I have fairly good relations with them. They've invited me to go and watch the results come in tomorrow at their headquarters, and I'll be there. But at the same time, There are a few figures I personally have issues with. There's Björn Hooker, who's a kind of firebrand radical, and he has said some things which aren't okay. So he referred to the Holocaust Memorial as a memorial of shame, and he was using the phrase "Alles für Deutschland," which was actually a Nazi phrase. And given that he was a history teacher, so there are some, I think, good reasons why you have to say no. I'm not happy about that. I mean, Alice Weidel, the party leader, when she was in this interview with Musk, she actually said Hitler was a communist. If you look at it, he actually sent communists, tens of thousands of them, to death camps. So I think it's also okay to say when there are elements which aren't okay, but that I don't think detracts from their noble and very necessary stance on uncontrolled mass immigration.
Yeah, because I mean, I maybe shouldn't admit this, but I listened to Alice Weidel being interviewed by Bloomberg. And, you know, Bloomberg's not exactly renowned for being a penchant for fascism, but I found her to be incredibly reasonable and measured. And many of the policies she advocates were reform platform, you know, manifesto commitments.
She was an ex-banker, wasn't she?
That's right. Yeah, Goldman Sachs, I think. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, well, she's a globalist.
Speaks Chinese as well.
Oh, does she? Well, we're finding out all sorts. All right, Rob, thank you very much. And I'm sorry we had to ask you about that really sad news coming in from France. But as you well know, Rob, this is the kind of thing that we in the media have to cover all the time now. And I think Europe needs to wake up. But, Rob, thank you so much for that insight. I look forward to your analysis tomorrow. Now, it's time for the Great British Giveaway. If you want to be one of 2 new winners, each with a new iPhone, shopping vouchers and £10,000 in tax-free cash, here's all the details that you'll need.
Don't miss your chance to be one of 2 big winners in our latest Great British Giveaway, as we have 2 prize bundles that have to be won. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. Hurry, lines close on the 7th of March. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Hey, Darren. Still to come tonight. Donald Trump is expected to take the stage any moment in Maryland. On your screen right now is, well, that's not Donald Trump moments ago, but that is indeed the Elise, who is from CPAC. She's an official at CPAC within the Republican beating heart. And Donald J. Trump, the leader of the free world, will indeed be appearing shortly to address on a whole host of issues. And we'll get those pictures live to you so you can watch. But next, has the government made Apple users more vulnerable to cyber threats? I'm going to have a scrap with Kai for Saturday's Scrap.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
As we kick off 2025, many of us might be thinking about a bit of a wardrobe refresh, especially if you're over 50 and you feel like the high street doesn't quite cater to you.
Indeed. That's where our next guest, Mel Tillett, comes in. She's in the studio with us now.
Mel, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I love that you are this accidental influence. I love that you said that's the first time.
Yeah, it is. That's the first time I've heard it.
You can have that
Yes,
for free on
thank you so
GBnews.
much. It's quite true.
Tell us about your following. Obviously, an influencer that many people might typically think of would be someone in their teens, someone in their 20s, someone who's particularly social media savvy, using TikTok. Talk to us about your brand of influencer.
Well, our influencer, my kind of influence is over the older age group, the over 50s. For my business, I do a lot of live videos. I do them early in the morning at 7:30, which sounds ridiculous, but I know my ladies are up and about at that time having a cup of coffee or whatever that might be. And just being honest about day-to-day life. So my dogs are running about, my grandchildren are even sometimes in them, one thing and another. So it's just been purely by accident that I've got this really nice, loyal following, and I get lovely messages off ladies. I'll do things like, I'll tell them when I'm going for a mammogram, and I'll say, come on, everybody go for your mammogram.
That's brilliant.
All sort of health-conscious things. I've been a lot heavier than I am now, and I've slimmed down and lost some weight. I've been talking about that journey as well. And then ladies will ask me questions on the videos, and we chat about all sorts of different things. And now I'm getting messages every day, and people are loving the clothing ranges that we do. And it's just, I started off as a business, that's purely what I did, but it's turned out into this other, I get recognised places I go now, which is really weird.
It must be a huge benefit to your business as well.
We employ around about 50 people.
Wow.
And I'm quite open to my audience and saying, you know, while ever you keep buying offers, while ever you're loving our products and our clothing, you're keeping 50 people in jobs.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Thank you very much for getting in contact at gbnews.com/your say. Now, Cassandra's just messaged in, and Cassandra says, taking your presenters poll is much like having to choose one of your 4 favourite chocolates that you want to eat first.
It's called the Saturday 5 for a reason.
She says, Cassandra says, as with all chocolate boxes, however, there is always one chocolate no one likes and is left in the box. And Cassandra, all I could say is that I'm Cadbury's in this scenario, OK?
And I'm Orange chocolate,
yes.
Left in the box is a lovely touch.
It is. Very well done, Cassandra. And Anne-Marie has written in, and Anne-Marie says, how can Luca be so intelligent at such a young age, yet Kai is still struggling? So...
Please answer for me.
There is... Yes, there are... But, you know, a lot of others are... Darren says, Chai, you are right. European electors, most authorities are against Trump, Musk and reform. That's why they're in decline. They believe in their views and fail to listen to the people who vote. So,
democracy, then.
But he did actually call you Chai. That wasn't me trying to be funny. And Sandy says, actually, you will find that many of these attacks are occurring every day in Europe. You will also find that a great many people throughout Europe will be hoping that the AfD do very well because they are sick of this enforced immigration of peoples that have an alien culture to us and have ruined Europe. Sandy, listen, I hear you. I hear you totally. I think journalists like Rob, I wouldn't like to cover that day in, day out. Right, don't forget, you can vote for your favourite chocolate at gbnews.com/poll. The results are, oh my word, I feel like the Labour Party in the next election. Renee is storming ahead on 37%. Darren Grimes is on 24%. Luca is steaming up there on 20%. And Will is right down on 18%.
But not as down.
Not as down as Kai.
Down, but not out.
On 1%. The vote will close at 8:30 p.m. Now, though, it's time for this. Yes, now indeed it's time for tonight's main event. Apple, my friends, are removing their strongest data security feature from the United Kingdom after the government demanded access to user data. The change means iCloud storage will no longer be encrypted, making personal files accessible to both Apple and officials with a warrant. So the question is, has the government made our data more vulnerable? Has the government actually advocated for foreign regimes to get the same carve-outs? Well, seconds out, it's round one. Ding, 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 take it away. Doesn't seem as fun when I do that. Right, OK, I'm going to go first. Listen up, Buttercup. What I would say is that actually I think they have, in opening up this back door, they have allowed the likes of Russia, who you hate with a vehement passion, Kai, to be able to request the same kinds of carve-outs for themselves. The likes of China, Iran, for them to all have the same carve-outs too. And once you create a back door, what you do is actually weaken the encryption protection full stop, so that people, without the laudable aims of, say, someone seeking to combat paedophilia, an aim which I hope you would recognise, I wholeheartedly support. But such an endeavour means that you do create this back door that is vulnerable to terrorists, it's vulnerable to those seeking criminality, to hank your bank data and all the rest of it, or those seeking to actually leak pictures of you that you may not want to get out into the public domain. In about 10 years, experts tell us that encryption may not exist. It may well be rendered completely useless because they'll just figure out how to get around and circumvent all of this technology in the first place. But why would we make their job a hell of a lot easier for them by getting rid of those safeguards from the off? And can I just say, Kai, what I would say, given what happened last summer, with the imprisonment of many of those who posted online, some of them actually friends of people on this panel tonight, that actually the assault by the police there and the attempts to look into what maybe comments had been said on the internet, I have no confidence that Sir Keir Starmer's government won't use access to our iCloud data to see that maybe we shared a spicy meme that they don't like, that maybe we shared something a little bit too negative about His Majesty's government. And I deeply worry about the authoritarian consequences of allowing privacy safeguards to be rendered completely useless.
Look, Darren, you've made lots of my points for me. This whole debate is a load of hot air. Now, you talk about this allowing China and Russia to steal all our data. Well, Apple already complies with a lot of the Chinese government's data requests. This is nothing new. Why is Apple complying with government data requests abroad, but then suddenly when it's the UK government, it rejects it entirely? So that's just one thing. And then you also mentioned that this move will allow foreign criminals, child rapists and so on to gain an advantage. Well, actually, this change by Apple, this policy change, protects criminals, not citizens. Terrorists, human traffickers, child abuse networks, without access to see what these people are doing, authorities lose critical evidence. Now, yes, privacy concerns need to be safeguarded, but we're not talking about your average Joe on the street. What we're talking about is Apple protecting criminals across the UK from protecting criminals accessing encrypted networks. Now, really, this is not the mountain that you've made out of this molehill.
OK, right. I'll bring in the panel. Renee, you had an interesting view on this.
Yeah, so I said that I was torn on this earlier, but actually, as you were speaking, something popped into my head. I was torn just because I have a patient whose son was killed. We know that he was dragged to where he was by his phone and they can't access it. They're not allowed. So for me, that's quite emotional and I'm torn there. However, what came to mind when you were speaking was during COVID, we now know from the Taby files that the big Facebook, Twitter, etc., were instructed by government to shut people down, to take down their tweets and to completely take away their platforms. I was monitored by the government during COVID. I've got those files. I've done my SAR. So we actually can't trust government with our data and we do need protection. So I come down on that side of things. I don't believe we can ever trust these people in power to not misuse this power.
And what I would say, Renee, as well, another interesting point that you'll be a worthwhile voice on, is that actually on the paedophilia point, if a man is trying to access a conversation with a child through an encrypted network, where's the parent?
Yes, I mean, look, we have to protect our children, and it all comes back to parenting to do that. And then schools, of course. My 6-year-old is having online safety lessons already at school, what they must and mustn't do if they go online. I mean, she doesn't go online, but they are having those lessons. And you're right, that's about parenting. Paedophiles are always going to find a way to access children.
Yeah. Will?
Fully agree with Renee. Nothing to add. You can have some time back, Darren.
Oh, thank you very much.
Why, thank you.
All right. Well, Luca.
No, I agree with Renee as well.
I just saw you deleting all your pictures.
Yeah, I thought, oh God, I've only just heard the news now. Yeah. No, I think it's right that ultimately it comes to whether or not you trust the government, the state.
Do you?
No. I don't think at the moment it would be sensible to do so. So, yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. And obviously there are sometimes noble aims. You mentioned trying to go after paedophiles and things like that. But ultimately, you have to decide whether or not you believe in privacy and how much importance you put on that.
It's also a real contradiction, isn't it? Because on the one hand, we've got paedophiles that we know are paedophiles that we're allowing to stay in the country because they need access to their children. But then...
Yeah. Well, there are better ways. If you want to crack down on something like that, there are much easier things we could do. Often paedophiles don't even get custodial sentences. I think that would be a much better way.
75%.
Exactly,
Do you know
much better
what's
way
just
to do it.
occurred to me as well is that time and again, whenever we're discussing the trade-offs between privacy and security, the leftists always say, well, having mass migration in a country is good because it's, you know, diversity is our strength. And they say that the security trade-offs that brings, i.e. terrorism, is just a trade-off we have to make. Well, when it comes to privacy and security, they're like, well, to hell with the trade-off implications of that. And I think there's a naive assumption that we're always going to have a left-wing government who will be on your side and won't use your data in nefarious ways. I think
if you're trying to find logical consistency in the leftist mind, Darren, you'll be searching for some time.
Listen, I'm trying to be fair here. I want to win a box of chocolates.
Look, I agree that you need to guard against strong governments, whichever way their ideology sways. But also, I think what the last few weeks have shown us with Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter and the impact that's had on what used to be the world's public square shows you can't trust big tech either. And so falling on one side or the other against big tech or against governments, actually, we should be wary of any strong institutions.
We should, but that's just your lefty side no longer enjoying Twitter because people like me are allowed to say
just
what
like
I
Elon
want
Musk
to
is
say.
enjoying community notes, which is something that he implemented.
That's okay, but
or his own AI platform that he implemented,
but
because they rightfully fact check.
And if
rubbish,
Elon Musk encrypted end-to-end, even Elon Musk couldn't access your messages. And that's the key thing here. Even tech giants couldn't utilise that data. So whilst we've got that technology... Yes, exactly. Whilst we've got that technology in place, I think we should utilise it to its fullest degree.
Yeah, because where it will also go is people will start being debanked because they'll be able to access their messages. They don't like what they're doing. Off goes your bank account. I mean, I've seen that happen to people around me, us for them, who were trying to protect children in COVID.
I know Keir Starmer's just texted me now. I've got Nigel Farage's messages. He's a goner. There we are. Poor Nige, debanked again. Now, Donald Trump is expected to take to the stage any moment in Maryland now. He'll, on your screen, right this second, is, well, not Donald Trump, but if it is, well... We'll bring you President Trump, though, live shortly. There's some beautiful sing-song going on right now. But next... She's back again. Despite telling the world she wants privacy, she can't stay away. You're with the Saturday 5, you're live on GB News.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Eastern parts of the Mediterranean experiencing below average temperatures and also some heavy showers at times. These are set to affect Athens and also Santorini, but as we move our way westwards across the Mediterranean, largely mild, largely settled. There are a few showers affecting Nice and parts of the Balearic Islands, but elsewhere across Spain, Portugal, Madeira and also Tenerife, largely settled, and it remains that way as we head into the new week. Sunny spells and the best of the temperatures and a gradual improvement in temperatures across Santorini.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Ironic article in The Guardian, Nick, caring about facts.
Yeah, this is Meta is ushering in a world without facts, says Nobel Peace Prize winner. And they just seem to give these Nobel Peace Prizes to anyone these days. So it's Maria Ressa.
Not working.
Zuckerberg came out, and it was very bold. He said a few things. We're going to use community notes instead of fact-checkers. Fact-checkers in inverted commas, it just means people pushing usually a specific viewpoint. Community notes seems to be a great system that X uses, so why not do that? I think that's great. He's going to reduce restrictions on topics like immigration and gender. Good, because I'm against censorship. He's going to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more, which is great. He's also moving content moderation to Texas instead of California, which is banter. So now the cynical version is he's just realises we've got a new regime, it's the MAGA era, and I want to be mates with Trump, who said that I should that if I interfere with the 2024 election, he should spend the rest of his life in prison. So he did mention he might be a bit scared of that. He was involved in that in Facebook suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop scandal, and I feel that he didn't like being a part of all that from watching interviews.
And also the suppression of arguments about gender and sex, what is biological sex and whatnot. You get banned for saying there are two sexes.
They're on the wrong side of this, and now he's correcting. But the weird thing is the people, of course, the people who don't like this, the lefties, this person, Ressa, is saying that this is a big problem. That it's an extremely dangerous time. I've seen all this from the lefties. They just call it disinformation. They're worried about this because to them it's disinformation. To other people it's information.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I think we can all agree if people think they're getting their facts just directly from Facebook, then something's horribly wrong. But we know that. The community notes thing, I think, is quite good because that sort of first-hand experience people are putting down, aren't they?
Yeah. People have loads of different views come together, and it's an aggregate, so that's why it works.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Thank you very much for all of your messages coming in thick and fast. Ivor says Apple should just tell the UK government it's going to pull out of the UK altogether, laying off jobs and workers and, of course, many millions of consumers. So, yeah, absolutely. And don't forget, my friends, you can vote in the poll, which I think is corrupt, at gbnews.com/poll. Oh, right, we're going to get to President Trump right now because he is indeed coming out, not like that, onto stage in Maryland for CPAC. You can hear the very patriotic songs there in the background. And has he got a cap on there? No, he hasn't.
No, that's just his
hair. Right, the president of the free world will, of course, be addressing the nation and, of course, the world. He'll be focusing, no doubt, undoubtedly, on issues of significant international importance, such as Israel and Gaza and Ukraine, and what that means for Europe, which I think will translate to you better spend more to defend yourself because I ain't doing it for you anymore. Yep. Which Europe needed to hear for long enough, Will.
That's right, Darren. 100%.
Yeah.
Are we awkwardly filling time until Donald starts speaking?
Listen, it would make my heart sing like a canary if actually he came out and said we need to stop being an illiberal nation
Well, it's
like
funny, Australia.
Well, I mean, he's kind of said that anyway, hasn't he? I mean, I wonder if the Starmer team...
Sir Keir Starmer's so nice to me. He's a
I
nice
know,
guy.
but that's just mind games, isn't it? And I wonder if the Starmer team will be watching this for any signs of what
Because,
they
of
might
course,
talk about.
crucially, they meet the president next week. The Team Starmer meet the president next week to discuss Ukraine and those other issues, at which it is reported that Vice President J.D. Vance will call out Starmer. So, you know, it's all to play for. And will Trump be calling people out tonight? We shall see. And as ever with Trump, the showman, the perfect showman, this is a man who was made in television, who understands how to build up to a speech like this and to a television moment. He is the king of TV. And that's why he's meaning that I've got to waffle on for 5 minutes until he actually opens his mouth.
It's a serious standing ovation.
It's a serious standing
Don't
ovation.
worry, Darren. Once he starts, he won't be able to finish.
He won't, indeed. It'll be great. It'll be fantastic.
Look, it'll be fabulous. Even my very lefty son has said that there are things he's doing that he has to approve.
Yes.
God, here. Who's this?
There we are. The shaking of the hands there to those organising CPAC ICU.
Little point. Oh, thumbs up.
Lots of points. Well, have a listen in.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. And a very special hello to CPAC. It's been a long time. We've loved being back, and it's hotter than ever. This place is packed. You got to see outside. They don't know what's happening. They have no idea what's happening. And a friend is here from Argentina, and a friend is here from Poland. Stand up. Great job. Thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome back to the nation's capital, where our movement is thriving, fighting, winning, and dominating Washington like never before. Nobody's ever seen anything like this before. They used to have a little smaller crowds here. Is a little bigger. The fraudsters, liars, cheaters, globalists, and deep state bureaucrats are being sent packing. The illegal alien criminals are being sent home. We're draining the swamp, and we're restoring government by the people, for the people. For years, Washington was controlled by a sinister group of radical left Marxists, warmongers, and corrupt special interests who drained our wealth, attacked our liberties, obliterated our borders, and sucked our country dry. Not any longer. But on November 5th, we stood up to all the corrupt forces that were destroying America. We took away their power. We took away their confidence. They lost their confidence. You know, do you ever watch? They lost their confidence. Oh, it's so nice to watch. And we took back our country, and we must be doing something right, because we've got the highest poll numbers that I've ever had and that any Republican president has ever had. And our approval rating is now the highest ever across all demographics. Rasmussen just came out at 56%. Insider Advantage, 56%. RMG Research, 57%. And we have many polls in the mid-60s, one at 71%. We like that, 71. And according to YouGov, a big deal, 70% of Americans believe that what we are doing is right, and we are keeping our promises. That's all we're doing, when you think, is keeping our promises. That's all we had to do. And their promises weren't worthwhile to go and vote for. They loved men playing in women's sports, open borders, little things like that. But don't tell them. Don't tell them. Keep it quiet. We'll tell them about a week before the next election. Now keep it quiet. Let them think it's a great thing what they're doing. You saw Maine yesterday, right? The governor of Maine. She's fighting to keep men in women's sports. You ever see what happens to a woman when a woman boxes a man who transitioned to womanhood? Did you ever see what happens? It's not pretty. It's not pretty. Let her do that fight. Let them all do that fight. Because I think that's about a 90-10 issue, and I can't figure out who the 10% are. Nobody can. So today I want to say thank you to all of the incredible patriots of CPAC and all of the incredible patriots in our country. 77 million, and it's actually much more than that because despite that, they cheated like hell. It was just too big to rig. It was too big to rig. 77 million. Remember, you used to go, I said, look, we're leading in the polls by a lot. Don't believe the polls. Just go and vote. You got to vote. We're going to make it too big to rig. And they tried, but it was too big to rig. One of the great statements. We love it because everybody went and voted. We fought through hell together, but in the end, we achieved the great liberation of America. We're liberating our country right now. We're doing all these things that you're reading about. We're liberating our country. I first spoke to this gathering 14 years ago, and I won your straw poll. I didn't know anything about a straw poll. They took this big straw poll, and I won by like 27 points. And I figured, you know, that's good. Maybe I should keep doing it, and I did. And I became president. Isn't that great? Who would think? Who would think? But he became president, too. He's a MAGA guy, too. Make Argentina great again, right? Make Argentina great again. I kept hearing about this man. I kept hearing about this man in beautiful Argentina, and it is beautiful, but boy, did it have inflation. Inflation made it less beautiful. I hear you're doing fantastically. We're very proud of you, actually. And make Argentina great again. Thank you very much. Great honor to have you. But now it's my honor to address you for the first time as your 47th President of the United States. Great honor. Begin by thanking Matt and Mercedes Schlapp for the incredible job they do, and everyone they put together. They put together an amazing team, the American Conservative Union, for organizing this event. You have some big players here. Senator Ted Cruz, Eric Schmidt, Jim Banks of Indiana. Where's Eric? Where is Eric? Is it? Hello, Eric. You can see Eric anywhere. If he's right in the back of the room, he stands up. They're all good. These are great people. Representatives Riley Moore, James Comer, Harriet Hagerman, Byron Donalds. Our great Attorney General, she's going to be great, Pam Bondi. Where's Pam? I don't know where she is. So many people. So many people. Secretary Doug Burgum. Secretary Chris Wright. Oh, he's going to get that energy out of the ground. Secretary Scott Turner. Our next ambassador to the United Nations, Elise Stefanik, who just gave a great speech, by the way. A very good friend of mine. Is this guy Central Casting, though? Tom Homan. Is he Central Casting? Where is it? Hello, Tom. Are you? I love that. How could I love a guy like that? But I do. He's doing a great job. Thank you, Tom, very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Arkansas Governor Sarah Sanders. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. And Pennsylvania Attorney General Dave Sunday. I love that name. We're also honored to be joined by President Duda of Poland, who's a fantastic man and a great friend of mine. And we got 84% of the Polish people that voted for her, so you must be doing something right, huh? Hanging out with Trump. And again, President Milei of Argentina, thank you very much. Thank you very much. What a great guy. And the Prime Minister of Slovakia, Robert Fico. Robert, thank you, Robert. Thank you. Nice to see you. The leader of the UK Reform Party, who, by the way, did really well in that last election. I've been his friend for a long time, and I wasn't sure, am I supposed to be his friend or not? But it never mattered to me if he did well or not. I always liked him, but it's easier to like him when he got the kind of votes he got. He really took it by storm, and they say he's going to do even better this time. Nigel Farage. Where is Nigel? Thank you, Nigel. Thank you. What a great guy. The leader of Spain's Vox Party, Santiago Abascal. Thank you, Santiago. Thank you. Thank you very much. I thought that was you. Thank you very much. Great job you're doing. And a friend of mine, Eduardo Bolsonaro of Brazil, the Chamber of Deputies. Thank you. Thank you. Say hello to your father. Thank you very much. Great family. Great gentleman and a great family. And our great First Lady, Melania, is watching us right now on television. So give her a hand. Give her a hand. Whoa. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, she's going to be happy. That's so nice. We love our First Lady. Everybody does. With the help of so many incredible supporters here today, we're going to forge a new and lasting political majority that will drive American politics for generations to come. I think we're going to do fantastically well in the midterms. You know, in theory, the one that wins the presidency does not do well in the midterms, but I think this is going to be a change. We're at a level, I don't think we've been at this level maybe ever as the Republican Party. We're a bigger, better, stronger party than ever before. More people in our party than ever before. But the people have given us a resounding mandate for dramatic change in Washington, and we are going to deliver it. We're going to use it, and we're going to make America great again by using it. So it's going to be something. But think of it, at the presidential level, we won the popular vote by millions and millions of votes. We swept all 7 swing states, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, all by great margins. We won 85% of all of the counties in America. That means that map was red. Did you ever see the map? Did you see the certified map? Where is it? I want to see a certified map. It's all red. You can hardly find the blue. Think of this. They won 525 counties, and we won 2,600 counties. It's the biggest margin ever recorded. And incredibly, for the first time ever, all 50 states shifted toward the Republican Party. It's never happened before. So it was indeed too big to rig. We won the largest number of African-American votes in Republican history, by far. We won the largest number of Hispanic-American votes, any Republican ever. Hispanic Americans, we love you. The energy, the brilliance of Hispanic Americans. We won all of the cities and towns along the Texas border, whereas before I ran, we won none. We never used to win any. I got a call from our great governor of Texas who said, President, you just won every single town along the Texas border to Mexico. I said, oh, is that good? He said, it hasn't happened since Reconstruction. I said, define Reconstruction for me. He said, that means essentially the Civil War. That's a long time. But that was when I first heard about it, actually. Our party has become the proud voice of hardworking citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. And I think one of the main reasons, not that we're conservative or not that we're anything else, We are the party of common sense. It's about common sense, right? It's all about common sense. Over the past month, we've confirmed an all-star team of warriors, patriots, visionaries, and put the America First agenda into action. I see Doug Burgum sitting right over there. I tell you, he was so good. I looked at him. I said, I got to have him here. I got to have him. He's, you know, he was a great governor. He's involved with a little thing called energy. He's got the Department of Interior, and Chris Wright has the Department of Energy. So Chris has no energy, and Doug has all of the energy. Chris has more interior, but he doesn't have. So I merged them. So now you have an energy guy, and you have the guy with all the energy, and you're going to drill, baby, drill, aren't you, huh? Drill, baby, drill. And Catherine, stand up. His wife is incredible. She is such an incredible woman. Incredible woman. You got very lucky, Doug. It's good to be successful, isn't it, Doug? She's an incredible woman. He's an incredible guy. In addition to the great cabinet secretaries we have here today, we confirm Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth to end the woke insanity and rebuild our military. Pete is fantastic. Thank you. To stop the weaponization of federal law enforcement, I know about that, I think, better than any human being on earth. This week, we swore in a new director of the FBI, somebody that everybody wanted, Kash Patel. Kash is great. He's a popular guy. He went through with the blessing of a lot of good people, too. I'll tell you, it was great. To end the politicalization of our intelligence agencies, we confirmed Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who is something very respected, highly respected. And to make America healthy again, we confirmed Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr. Great guy. We need him. We need him. You know, there's a number on autism as an example with children, autism. And you go back 15 years, it was from 10 to 20,000. You had like 1 in 10 to 20,000. Some say 10, some say 20, but it was in that vicinity. That's a big vicinity. Now it's 1 in 36 babies have autism. 1 in 36. Think of it. It was 1 in probably 20,000 people. Now it's 1 in 36. There's something wrong. Something's wrong, and Bobby is going to find it. Working with Dr. Oz, by the way. Working with Dr. Oz. Together, we've achieved more in 4 weeks than most administrations achieve in 4 years. We made a lot of progress. I heard O'Reilly last night say Donald Trump, for the first 4 weeks, is the greatest president ever in the history of our country. That was O'Reilly. Bill O'Reilly, he's all right. You know who he said second was? George Washington. That's not bad. I beat George Washington. I love beating George Washington. Thank you, Bill. On our first day in office, we declared a national emergency at our southern border. After years of politicians using our military to defend foreign borders while leaving our country defenseless and helpless, we deployed a group of people, active duty troops, to defend our border and repel the invasion of our country. This was an invasion. You know, we had a great first term, a really great first term, and I called it an invasion. And we had great numbers, but now we have the best numbers we've ever had. We've never had numbers like this. We've done it all in 4 weeks. Think of it. That was Tom Homan, Kristi Noem, the whole group. On day one, I ended catch and release. I reinstated remain in Mexico when I signed an order that will end birthright citizenship for the children of illegal aliens. Because it wasn't meant for these children. It wasn't meant for people that escaped or invaded, came into our country illegally. It was meant for the children of slaves. Because when it was done, many, many years ago, it was during a very tough period in this country's history, and that was meant for the children of slaves. I wish people would understand that so they could get this thing approved and we don't have millions and millions of people coming into our country and they shouldn't be here. This week, I also canceled temporary protected status for migrants from Haiti. They're pouring into our country, pouring in. If I weren't elected president, there'd be nobody in Haiti anymore. They were pouring in at levels from other countries too, all over Africa, the Congo, all over South America. And they were coming in from prisons and mental institutions and insane asylums, jails, and gang members. And you have to see gang members, drug lords, people that are drug addicted. They were sending them all into our ridiculous and very stupid Biden open border. Our border czar was Kamala. Haven't said that name in a while. I haven't said that name. No, I haven't said that name in a while. Kamala. I'll bet nobody knows her last name. Nobody ever knows her last name. Even during the campaign, you'd have to say Kamala. It's strange, you know, a little different name. Kamala, because her last name was Harris. I used to say Senator Harris. Nobody knew who the hell I was talking about. So I had to go Kamala. But think of it, I was beating Joe badly, really badly, and they changed him. I'm the only one that ever had to beat two people. I had to beat two. Had to beat two. We beat two. I didn't beat. You beat. You beat two people. No, he was doing badly. That's like the great Dana White. He has a fight, and one guy's doing really badly, so when they take him out, they put another guy in the fight, the same guy that's... I had that. Never happened before. A lot of things we do never happened before. Do you ever notice that? We're the first in everything. So we beat two candidates. They said, who do you run against? Well, we ran against Biden, and we ran against Kamala Harris. But illegal border crossings now have plummeted by almost 100%. The border czar never called the border, never called the great people of the border. They have unbelievable... I called them so much they couldn't take my calls. They hated me. But then they became to love me. You know why? Because the border people want to have great borders. But you have to call them on occasion. How are we doing today? Pete, how are we doing? You have to call. And we called the right guys. I became friends. You know, the Border Patrol endorsed me. And these people, you have no idea. They weren't supposed to, because you're not supposed to do that. I don't think you're allowed to do it. Actually, they did it anyway. They said, this is crazy. But these are great people, and ICE, and our general law enforcement, and by the way, our great, great firemen and firewomen, too. They were great. They all endorsed us. With the police, we got high 90s in terms of, and many of them were unionized, you know. We have a young lady who's right now going for the Department of Labor, and she tends to be a little bit on the slightly left of center. And everybody said, why did I do that? I said, you know why I did that? Because unions like her and labor likes her and a lot of people like her, and she's very solid, very strong, and she's going to do the right thing. But they all voted for us. They didn't vote for me, they voted for us. We got the Teamsters, we got the firefighters, we got the police, we got the auto workers, were so great. We had tremendous support, so I think it's nice to give them a person in the center, because that's what she's going to be very good, I think. But a lot of people said, why'd you do that? I said, because I want to do something nice for these people that voted for me. Oh, gee, what a great political move that was. Now they're all saying, what a great political move. No, it's all common sense. Remember that. Remember that. Sean O'Brien was fantastic. The whole group, they were great. Over the past few weeks, we've begun the largest deportation operation in American history, larger even than that of President Dwight D. Eisenhower, a very moderate man, but he was very strong on that. He didn't like people running into our country and taking over our country. I'll tell you, I had 4 years. I don't know if you had this. I couldn't stand it. Don't get angry. Donald, don't get angry, please. I couldn't stand it. Watching these people come in from jails and mental institutions and the worst criminals in the street, gang members being dropped off in buses and bussed into our country. I couldn't stand it. So I said, I'm going to run for president again. And now we don't have that problem. Now we don't have that problem anymore. We don't have that problem anymore. We now have the best border we've ever had. And by the way, if they can ever find my world's favorite chart ever in history, I'll show you what it was when I left. And now it's even slightly better. Can you drop that chart, do you think? I don't know. I never tell them about this, but they used to drop it like magic. If they can, they'll drop it. Who the hell knows? But it's my favorite chart. My favorite chart in history. We're liberating communities like Aurora, Colorado, and Springfield, Ohio, that have been occupied by illegal alien criminals from all over the world. We're rescuing the Americans whose jobs have been stolen, whose wages have been robbed, and whose way of life has been absolutely destroyed. And under the Trump administration, our country will not be turned into a dumping ground. We're not going to do it. We're going to have a great country again. It's going to happen soon, a lot sooner than you think, and we're going to have so much money coming in from tariffs. Oh, you're going to say, your senators and your congressmen are going to say, please, sir, please, you're making us look so bad. We have so much money coming in. I didn't know this was going to happen. Please don't do this to us. We look very bad. But they're great. They're doing well. I tell you, the Republican senators they're sticking together. The Republican congressmen and women are sticking together. Every once in a while, you have one that wants a little action or something. I don't know what it is. It's so sad to see. I just hate to see it. I hate to see it. But they're sticking together. One thing about the Democrats, they have rotten, horrible policy, the worst policy in history, but they stick together. We have great policy, but sometimes they don't stick, but they've been sticking for us. They've been sticking. And I think the Speaker and the leader have done a fantastic job. That's Thune and Johnson, and I think they've done, two guys really working hard and they're really doing a great job. But we have a lot to stick with. We have a lot to stick together for, because what we've done has never been done before. Nobody's ever seen anything like this, and nobody's ever seen 4 weeks like we've had. Especially the 4 weeks, the first 4 weeks. You know, that's like if you golf, when you sink that first 4-footer in the first hole, it gives you confidence on the next hole, you sink another one. Now you go into that third hole and you can't, and by the time you get to the fifth hole, you feel you can't miss, right? Like a baseball player, he gets up and he hits our first one, and then the second at bat, he hits that one. And, you know, and we have great confidence, and they've lost their confidence, as I said. They've really lost their confidence. I watched them. They're really screwed up. I watched this MSNBC, which is a threat to democracy, actually. They're stone cold mean, but they're stuttering. They're all screwed up. They're all mentally screwed up. They don't know what. Their ratings have gone down the tubes. I don't even talk about CNN. CNN's sort of like, I don't know, they're pathetic, actually. But MSNBC was mean. Their ratings are absolutely down. This Rachel Maddow, what does she have? She's got nothing. Nothing. She took a sabbatical where she worked 1 day a week. They paid her a lot of money. She gets no ratings. I should go against her in the ratings, because I'll tell you, she gets no ratings. All she does is to talk about Trump, 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 Trump. All different subjects, Trump this, Trump that. But these people are really, I mean, they lie. They shouldn't be allowed to lie every night. They are really a vehicle of the Democrat Party. They should be paying Is that Gordon? Yes, is that Gordon? The great Gordon Chang? Is that Gordon? Stand up, Gordon. Wow. We have everybody here today. Thank you very much. How am I doing on China? Am I doing good? Am I doing good on China? Tell you one thing, nobody's ever done like I've done on China. Nobody ever let people know what was happening with respect to China. And I happen to like President Xi, and I have tremendous respect for the people of China, love the people of China. But we've been treated very unfairly by China and many other countries. And we're not being unfairly treated anymore. We had that down to a science in the first term, and then they lost it. You know, we lost over $1 trillion to China this last year under Biden, Crooked Joe Biden. What do we like better, Crooked Joe or Sleepy Joe? Ready? Ready? Crooked Joe or Sleepy? Ready? Crooked Joe. Sleepy Joe. Got to stay with Crooked. He had one ability that I didn't have. He could do something that I couldn't do. I don't say that because he was a horrible golfer. Remember, he challenged me during the debate to a golf match? He said, I'm a 6 handicap. I said, you're not a 36 handicap. He said, he's a 6. And then he said, well, I'm 8. Remember? I said, that was quick. Picked up 2 strokes. He said, no, I'm an 8. But he's not a 36 handicap. But he had one ability that was amazing. He could go with cameras on him, television, fake news on him, probably because he knows they wouldn't cover it badly. You know, they covered him as well as you can cover him. How the hell can you cover the guy well? But he had this incredible ability. He could barely walk in the sand. Somebody thought he looked great in a bathing suit. And he'd walk in the sand pulling a thing that weighed about 6 ounces. You know those aluminum? See, aluminum's very good. You can, a child, it's meant for children and very old people to lift, right? So he would put it down, and he'd put it down, and he'd fall into it, and he'd immediately fall asleep in front of the media. I could never do that. That's the only thing. That's the only thing. I could never do it. No, he was Sleepy Joe, but he was crooked as hell. You know, there's no question. He was a sleepy, crooked guy. Terrible, terrible president. He was the worst president in the history of our country. I don't care. I'll say it. Jimmy Carter passed away recently, and he passed away a happy man. He was a happy man when he passed away because he said that it's not even close. Joe was the worst, and believe me, I have to clean up the mess. I'm cleaning up the mess, and it is a mess on the border with inflation. To go over every single thing he touched turned to shit, okay? Everything. It's true. It's true. That's true. Now Franklin Graham's angry at me. You know that. Franklin wrote me a letter. He said, I love your speeches. I love them so much. But they'd be better if you would never use foul language. And I told him, I said, Franklin, you know, Franklin Graham's a great guy, by the way, does a great job. The son of the great Billy Graham, right? But I said to Franklin, you know, sometimes you need it for emphasis. And he said, no, they'd be even better if you wouldn't use any bad language. That's not really a terrible word, you know. But that's a much more appropriate word, a better. What word would I use to describe? What word could I use? It's and we have to be truthful too. So you know, all countries are now taking their illegal aliens back, even those that stated strongly, "We will never take them back. Don't ever send them to us." But they said that during the Biden administration. They never said it during my administration. Venezuela's taking them back. Colombia's taking them back. Remember, Colombia said, we will not take them back, he said. And within about 13 minutes, I think, we would love to take them back. In fact, we will send our planes to pick them up. Remember? And they said, what happened? What happened? And you see these Venezuelan planes loaded up with some real nice people. You wouldn't have wanted to be the pilot on any of those planes. But they know we're not playing games, and just this week I officially designated bloodthirsty cartels and murderous gangs as foreign terrorist organizations, something which Biden didn't want to do and nobody wanted to do. It's true. The full might and power of the federal government will now be dedicated to eradicating MS-13, Tren de Aragua. That's the Venezuelan prison gangs. These are very nice fellows. The only thing good about them is they make our criminals look like nice people. It's true. Remember when they used to say, people that come in from foreign countries are nice people. These are wonderful people. These are good people. They're not murderers. They're not terrible. These people make us look like babies, okay? You know the Hells Angels? They're among the nicest people on earth when you compare them to these thugs. And the Hells Angels actually love our country, if you can believe that. They actually do. But their members and their leaders in the United States will be hunted down. I'm talking about MS-13. They're hunting them down. We removed tens of thousands, MS-13, Tren de Aragua, rooted out, arrested, and expelled from our soil like the savage monsters that they are. We don't have anybody coming up from Argentina. Nobody's coming up from Argentina to facilitate the mass removal of criminal aliens. I also issued an executive order to make available the full capacity and detention. We're going to use Guantanamo Bay. We have a detention facility that's actually massive. Nobody even knew it existed. Holds thousands of prisoners. We never used it. For 4 long years, you had a president who put illegal aliens up in penthouse suites in beautiful hotels on Park Avenue, on Madison Avenue, or on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. Now you have a president who is stamping their ticket to Gitmo on a one-way trip back to the places from which they came. Wonderful places. Big difference. My administration is also moving swiftly to save the U.S. economy from the train wreck of inflation and worse that Joe Biden created. I withdrew from the one-sided Paris Climate Accord. It was a disaster. That was a disaster. I terminated the Green New Scam. One of the greatest hoaxes ever played on this country is the Green New Scam. We spent trillions of dollars on this nonsense, and just a total hoax. It really set back our country, I want to tell you, monetarily and every other way. And I canceled Joe Biden's insane electric vehicle mandate, where everybody has to have an electric car. And if you want an electric car, get an electric car. If you want a gasoline-powered car, if you want to have a hybrid, you get it. The only thing you can't do is a hydrogen-powered car. You know why? They said it really works great, but when it doesn't work, you never find the body. That's a bad sign. You know, when it doesn't work, they found the body on a tree about 250 yards up the road. It's seriously bad. So we'll leave hydrogen out of it for a little while, I think, or maybe permanently. I'd say permanently. To crush inflation by slashing spending, I imposed an immediate federal hiring freeze, a federal regulation freeze, and a foreign aid freeze. We're given to countries that hate us. We're giving billions and billions of dollars to countries that hate us. And I signed an order creating the Department of Government Efficiency. You probably haven't heard of it, which is now waging war on government waste, fraud, and abuse. And Elon is doing a great job. He's doing a great job. We love Elon, don't we? It's that guy, he's a character. With his son X. We love X. He's the only one can get away. His son's really named X. He's the only one can get away with naming his son X. If we ever did it, they'd say, you're crazy. But he's great. He's doing a great job, and he doesn't need this either. He doesn't need it, but he's He wants to see, he's a patriot. People said, well, what official position does he have? I said, patriot. Oh, they didn't know. They said, that was good. He's a patriot. Here are some of the flagrant scams that, as an example, they've spent money on and we've been able to recapture for a large dose of it at least. $520 million for a consultant to, think of that, $520 million, $520 million. When I hire consultants and they just take advantage of me, it's a horrible thing to watch. And I give them $25,000, I feel I'm overpaying. These guys got $520 million. Environmental, social, governance, and investments in Africa. $25 million to promote biodiversity, conservation, and socially responsible behavior in Colombia. This is Colombia, South America, not Columbia University. Of course, that might be worse, actually, based on their actions. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. Nobody knows where. Who are they? Where do they come from? Just sedentary migrants. Nobody even knows what a sedentary migrant is. If they were sedentary, they wouldn't be a migrant, right? They wouldn't move. No, they wouldn't move. They'd stay in the same place. Right, Doug? $42 million for social and behavior change in Uganda. $10 million for Mozambique medical male circumcisions. Why are we going to Mozambique to do circumcisions? It's a lot of money. $14 million for improving public procurement in Serbia. Here's a beauty. $486 million to a consortium of elections and political process strengthening ideas, of which $22 million goes to inclusive and participatory political process in Moldova. $29 million goes to strengthen the political landscape and help them out so that they can vote for a radical left communist in Bangladesh. You had to see who they supported. You wouldn't believe, yeah, you would believe it. Nobody in this room would be in that group. $20 million for fiscal federalism and $19 million for biodiversity in Nepal. $47 million for improving learning outcomes in Asia. $18 million for helping India with its elections. Why the hell? Why don't we just go to all paper ballots? Let them help us with their elections, right? Voter ID. Wouldn't that be nice? We're giving money to India for elections. They don't need money. They take advantage of us pretty good. One of the highest tariff nations in the world. We try and sell something, they have a 200% tariff, and then we're giving them a lot of money to help them with their election. $32 million for the Prague Civil Society Center. $14 million for social cohesion in Liberia. $9.7 million to develop a cohort Cambodian youth with enterprise-driven skills. Think of that. Millions of dollars for sex change operations in Guatemala. $20 million for Sesame Street in Iraq. They put on a little play on the street. $20 million. You could do it on Broadway and have $19 million left over. No, it's a scam. They get kickbacks and all sorts of things. It's a scam. Who ever heard of it? Think of it, $20 million Sesame Street, a play. We're also uncovering outrageous incompetence and fraud in the Social Security. We have, look, let's assume that people, generally speaking, in our case, and everybody in this room, we're going to all live way over 100, but this is a little ridiculous because not too many people are going over 100. Everybody, hopefully, in this room will. But there are in the Social Security ranks and files. And what we're doing now is finding out, do they get paid? Do they get paid? In other words, is somebody taking all of this money? So they have over 100 to 109, 4.7 million Social Security numbers. Think of that, from people whose age is over 100. 3.6 million people whose age is over 110 years. 3.47 million people who are over 120 years of age. 3.9 million people whose age goes from 130 to 139 years of age. 3.5 million whose age goes from 140 to 149 years old. 1.3, see, it's coming down now slowly. No, it's all a scam. The whole thing is a scam. 1.3 million people, 1.3 who are over 150 years of age. And over 130,000 people are listed on our Social Security rolls as over 160 years of age. Now, the final is at 1,039, so now we're down into reasonable numbers. 1,039 people are listed between the ages of 220 years old to 229. And we have one person who's listed at 241 years of age. And we have one person listed at 360 years of age, an all-time record, and our country's 250 years old. So that person's substantially older than our country. Under our administration, there will be no tolerance for Social Security fraud. We will not allow anyone to cheat our seniors, and those who will do that will be prosecuted by Pam Bondi and others. We are also going to Fort Knox. I'm going to go with Elon. And would anybody like to join us? Because we want to see if the gold is still there. We want to see. Wouldn't that be terrible? We open up this Fort Knox. It's just solid granite that's 5 feet thick. The front door, you need musclemen to open it up. I don't even think they have windows. Wouldn't that be terrible if we opened it up and there was no gold there? So we're going to open those doors. We're going to take a look, and if there's 27 tons of gold, we'll be very happy. I don't know how the hell we're going to measure it, but that's okay. We want to see lots of nice, beautiful, shiny gold in Fort Knox. Don't be totally surprised. We open the door, we'll say, there's nothing here. They stole this too. Now, we have a very corrupt group of people in this country, and we're finding them out. We're removing all of the unnecessary, incompetent, and corrupt bureaucrats from the federal workforce. That's what we're doing. And under the buyouts, we offered federal employees more than 75,000 federal bureaucrats. Think of that. Have voluntarily agreed to surrender their taxpayer-funded jobs. We want to make government smaller, more efficient. We want to keep the best people, and we're not going to keep the worst people. And, you know, we're doing another thing. If they don't report for work, we're firing them. In other words, you have to go to office. Right? Right? Look at her. If you don't report to work, you know, that's another scam. You know, who the hell, if I'm staying home, I'm going to, let's see, my golf handicap get down to very low number. You'd be shocked if I told you the real number. But I would be so good, I'd try and get on tour. I would be so good. I'd call up, I'd say, listen, I'm really working here. Where are my clubs? Where are my clubs? Either that or, in many cases, they have second jobs while they're getting paid by us. So one of the reasons they're leaving is because they don't want to have to show that. And we're demanding to see that information. How many jobs have you had? Who paid you while you were working for the government? And we are demanding that people, if they work for the government, they have to show up and sit in an office and do their job, right? And we've also effectively ended the left-wing scam known as USAID, the agency's name. Has been removed from its former building, and that space will now house agents from Customs and Border Patrol. Beautiful. And at the ultra-left CFPB, which was terrible. So many people have been hurt by that. I used to get calls from lending officers, from owners of small banks, and they were almost crying what they did to those people. They destroyed them, put them out of business. It was established by Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren. Does anyone know? Remember the Pocahontas scam? I'm an Indian, therefore I'm entitled to be a senator. I'm an Indian, she said. Could we see proof of that, please? She said, well, the only proof I have is my mother said I have high cheekbones. Oh, that's no good, right? Remember she went out? I really spooked her, I tell you. Remember she went out, she couldn't take it anymore. She was calling her Pocahontas, Pocahontas. Everyone knew she was not an Indian. I had more Indian blood than her, and I have no Indian blood. I'd be honored to, but I don't have any, but I had more than her. Do you remember she went out and she had a blood test? And it came back and she was so happy because it said 1,024th. That means everybody in this room had more than her. But because there was even a scant, in other words, 1 million years ago, something could have happened. And she was so happy that she released it and she got killed. That was the end of her presidential career. She does not like me very much, but she's a very angry person. Do you notice the way she is? She's always screaming and she's crazy. These people are crazy. The radical left is meaner. Yes. I don't know what it is, Doug. They're meaner than us, aren't they? We're like normal people. We're smart, we get our word, but we don't go crazy. Of course, they'll take my little rant from 15 minutes ago, the fake news. He lost control on the stage. He lost control. And they'll have me screaming, having to do with Franklin, poor Franklin. He lost control of the stage. Oh, these people are bad. They are really sick, too. I don't get it. You think they'd want to love our country. They have no ratings anymore. Nobody listens to them. Nobody believes the fake New York Times. Washington Post is doing no business. They're losing all their business. Nobody believes them. But we've escorted the radical left bureaucrats out of the building and locked the doors behind them. We've gotten rid of thousands. I withdrew the United States from the corrupt World Health Organization. I withdrew from the anti-Semitic UN Human Rights Council. The council is horrible, and I withdrew from the terror-supporting UN Relief and Works Agency. The UN has such great potential, but not the way it's run now. It's terrible the way it's run now. We stopped all taxpayer money to these corrupt institutions. And by the way, just so, because who the hell knows, we got to talk about something very important. The war between Russia and Ukraine. People are being killed, mostly young men, mostly Russian and Ukrainian men, at levels you've never seen before, thousands of people a week. And I've spoken to President Putin, and I think that thing is going to end. It's got to end. It's a horrible, horrible thing to watch. I'm dealing with President Zelensky. I'm dealing with President Putin. I'm trying to get the money back that, or secured, because, Europe is given $100 billion. The United States has given $350 billion because we had a stupid, incompetent president and administration. 350. But here's worse. Europe gave it in the form of a loan. They get their money back. We gave it in the form of nothing. So I want them to give us something for all of the money that we put up. And I'm going to try and get the war settled, and I'm going to try and get all that death ended. So we're asking for rare earth and oil, anything we can get. But we feel so stupid. Here's Europe. And, it affects Europe. It doesn't really got us into this thing in the first place. Terrible. But why is it that he didn't ask for equalization? Europe should put up more money than us. But even if you said the same thing, how come we went so far out front? And he didn't know that Europe gets his money back. They did it in the form of a loan. We don't get our money back. We get nothing. So we're getting our money back. We're going to get our money back because it's not fair. It's just not fair. And we will see. But I think we're pretty close to a deal, and we better be close to a deal. Because that has been a horrible situation. It would have never happened if I were president. And by the way, October 7th, Israel would have never happened if I was president, too. It would have never happened. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah. They had no money to give. Everybody knows that. Jewish people in the audience know that Iran was broke. They were not giving money around. And when I got out, they took all the sanctions off Biden, and Iran became rich very quickly. With oil, you can become rich very, very quickly. And the rest is history. What a horrible thing. Even though the hostages are coming back, I saw it this morning where we got 6 more back. Biden got none back, by the way, just so you understand. None. 0. He would have never gotten any of them back. But they're coming back in pretty bad shape. It's a horrible thing, and many are dead. Many are dead. So we'll see how that all ends up, but it's a horrible thing. But I just want you to know we're working on that. That's a very big part of it. And I don't like talking about it because we're in the middle of negotiations, but it's a very, very sad, would have never happened. There was no way Russia was never going to go in, and they went in because of a lot of reasons, and so many people are dead. Far more people are dead than you're reading about. You know, when they blow up all these cities, all those cities they look like demolition sites. Every single building is down. All of those beautiful golden towers that are 1,000 years old, they're lying on the ground in smithereens, blown to smithereens. There's nothing left of them. They're just lying on the ground, never to be rebuilt again, possible to rebuild them again. And all of that heritage is gone. People have done a really horrible job. That would have never, if I were president, 0 chance that a shot would even have been fired. It wouldn't have happened. So sad. To further turbocharge our economy, we've launched the most aggressive deregulation program in any nation's history. And we're also going to be seeking the largest tax cuts in American history. Again, we brought them down, as you know, from close to 40% down to 21%. Now we're bringing them down to 15% if you make your product in the United States of America. We're defending the American worker like never before, and that's why the auto workers and the union workers and the Teamsters and so many others, they supported us, the firemen, the policemen. So many others, whether they were union or non-union, they all supported us. They supported, it's called workers, and they supported us at levels that nobody's ever seen before. Weeks ago, I imposed a 10% tariff on all goods coming from China because of the fact that they're sending fentanyl into our country, through Mexico, by the way. I'm not happy with Mexico, or I'm not happy with Canada either. I imposed 25% tariffs on all foreign steel and aluminum, and I will soon impose reciprocal tariffs on any country that charges us. And by the way, the reciprocal means they charge us, we charge them, same thing. So nobody can be upset, right? But we have countries charging us 200%, and we charge them nothing. They charge us, we charge them. Our country's going to become rich again, very rich. I always say it's my favorite word in the dictionary. The word tariff is my favorite word in the dictionary. You know, we were the richest relatively from, think of this, from 1870 to 1913. That was our richest because we collected tariffs from foreign countries that came in and took our jobs and took our money, took our everything. But they charged tariffs, and we had so much money, they set up the 1887. Think of that, a long time ago. 1887 Tariff Commission. It was a commission of very important people to determine where we should spend all of the tremendous, vast wealth that we had. We had so much wealth. Wouldn't it be nice today? Of course, now we give it away to transgender this, transgender that. Everybody gets a transgender operation. It's just wonderful. No, we give it away like to crazy things. But in those days, it was different. It was a different world. It was a different country. But we were very rich because of tariffs. And I get myself in trouble because I say that tariff is my favorite word. And the fake news went crazy. What about God? What about wife and family? What about love? I said, okay, tariff is now my 4th favorite word. I got myself into a lot of trouble with that. You can't believe it. I said, tariff is my favorite word in the dictionary, and I got killed by the fake news. So I say now, it doesn't sound good. Tariff, it's my 4th favorite word. I go, tariff is my 4th favorite word. It sounds so terrible, but this way I'm free. I write free, you know. I don't get clobbered by the fake news. But tariffs are also a powerful tool of diplomacy, and all around the world are moving quickly to bring back peace through strength. We have The greatest, I rebuilt our entire military in the first term. We left a lot of it, although a lot of it, but very small relatively, in Afghanistan. The Taliban has it. They have their parade every year where they take our military vehicles and run them up some little street, and like it's their form of a military parade, and it makes me angry when I see that. Angry. When I see that, I get angry. We give them, I don't think anyone knows this, we give Afghanistan about $2 or $2.5 billion a year. Do you know that? For aid. We need aid ourselves. And I'm going to go back, and I told them yesterday, I want to look at it, but if we're going to give them money, it's okay. But I want them to give us back our military equipment that they have. They're selling it. Doug, would you take that, please? All right? Write something up. No, I want them to give back. If we're going to give them that kind of money, let them give back the military equipment, which they have. Where they have tanks and trucks and guns and goggles. They have goggles. They have night goggles, better than we have. Brand new right out of the box. It's unbelievable. So I want to do that, and I want if we're going to pay them, I want to get that equipment back, okay? Doug can do it. He's one of the guys. He's a business guy. To him, he's sitting there saying, how the hell did this ever happen, right? Can you believe it? We give them billions of dollars, and we gave them our military equipment. Just tremendous numbers of billions of dollars worth of military, billions and billions. We have a ceasefire in Gaza, and we're joined today by several survivors of the captivity under Hamas, including Noah Argamani and Ilana Gretovsky. Wow, look at that, how beautiful. What a beautiful group of people. Wow, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And you're sitting next to a great guy, Sebastian Gorka, who's also now in the administration. From day one, right, Sebastian? He's been a loyalist from day one. We love Sebastian. Thank you very much, Sebastian. Thank you, everybody. That's very nice. Beautiful. We're going to make it work somehow, We're doing the best we can. We started. It should have never happened. That's the sad part. Would have never happened. If I were president, and I should have been, if I were president, it would have never happened. But it did so. We're doing the best we can with it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Also with us are family members of some individuals who are still hostages, and we will not rest until all of the hostages have been returned back home. Some of them are coming home in very bad condition, and some of them are coming home only as bodies. They're dead. We have a lot of them coming home now. They're dead. And these are largely young people. Young people don't die. Young people are young people. They don't die like this, but they're dead. And the parents come to me and they say, please, sir, could you get my son back? How old is he? Sir, my son is dead. It's important, just as important as if that son were alive, to get the body back. It's amazing, actually. Amazing. Just as important. Thank you. Thank you. It's amazing, though, the parents. The parents are strong. I mean, look, strong. What does strong mean? Strong is their life is ruined. Really, it's ruined. I see the people. But they come up to me, and it's so important to get the body back. They know. And some are not sure. They're 80% sure he's dead or she's dead. But they have that little glimmer of hope, and I say, let them have that hope, right? Let them have that hope. But getting the body back is just as important as getting the son back healthy or the daughter back healthy. It's amazing to see when I see the level of intensity and love and sorrow and tragedy. As I said in my inaugural address, it's my hope that my greatest legacy will be as a peacemaker, not a conqueror. I don't want to be a conqueror. Under the Trump administration, every day brings more Good news for America. I've ended all of the so-called diversity, equity, and inclusion programs across the entire federal government and the private sector, and notified every single government DEI officer that their job has been deleted. They're gone. They're fired. You're fired. Get out. You're fired. I made it the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. That was easy. I banned men from competing in women's sports. And I also proudly banned the use of... Yeah, thank you. We banned the use of puberty blockers, hormone injections, and other chemical and surgical mutilation of your youth. Could you imagine making a speech like this 10 years ago? People would say, what the hell is he talking about, right? This is a sickness that came along with critical race theory and all of the other things that we had to put up with. And it's all out now, critical race theory and transgender insanity. It's all gone from our schools and from our military. And I believe it's gone, too. I think we've turned the heads of even the people that, if you can believe they're believers, I don't know if they were, but I believe that it's all gone. And I've directed the reinstatement of any service member who was expelled from the armed forces due to the COVID vaccine mandate. They will be returned to their former rank with full back pay. Full back pay. I banned government censorship from your voices and brought back free speech in America. We have free speech. We didn't have free speech. We do have it now, actually. Now, this was a very vicious regime, you know. I was put under investigation more so than the late, great Alphonse Capone, one of the great killers of the world. Trump, my father would look down my mother. How the hell did this happen to my boy? This wasn't... No, I was under investigation at a far greater level than Al Capone or anybody else, probably in the history of our country. These people are sick. They're sick. They're bad people. I ended Joe Biden's weaponization as soon as I got in. I said, I'm going to hit him with the same stuff. But I ended his whole weaponization of our government and removed his hand-picked radical left Marxist prosecutors from the Department of Justice. I was so happy to do that. They weaponized government. They weaponized government. I pardoned hundreds and hundreds of Biden's political prisoners, including Christians, pro-life activists, and the J6 hostages who were treated terribly for years. We even got rid of people like Pete Buttigieg, who did the worst job of anybody in the history of transportation. What a bunch of losers. I revoked the security clearances of Anthony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, John Brennan, James Clapper, and every non-patriot who lied to cover up Hunter Biden's laptop from hell. We took away their security clearances. And they're not allowed to enter any government building either. I also revoked Joe Biden's security clearances, the Biden crime family security clearances, and they'll no longer be allowed to access state secrets while selling themselves all around the world. Oh, well. Now, these were bad people. These were bad people. And I do that because this should never be allowed to happen again. What happened to me in this administration, what happened on J6, what happened on all of the things they did that were so bad, should never, ever be allowed to happen again. And on a friendlier note, I renamed the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. And we are restoring the name of a great president, William McKinley, to Mount McKinley in Alaska. And as you know, many years ago, Jimmy Carter gave away the Panama Canal. And Panama started the process of giving the Panama Canal, by the way, the most expensive development ever in the history of our country, relatively. It would have been $1.5 trillion in today's dollars. 38,000 people died from our country building the Panama Canal. They died from mosquitoes and snakes. Think of it. They paid them 5 times their salary. They brought them to Panama, and they had a 25% chance of dying. They dug under nets so the mosquitoes wouldn't get them. But we lost 38,000, mostly men, laborers, construction workers, because it was such a harsh way to live. It was very brutal. They died. 38,000. Again, it was the most expensive thing we ever built, and they gave it away for $1 to Panama. And last year it made $5 billion. Also, that's one of the most successful projects ever built in terms of money, monetarily. And it's the 8th wonder of the world. It connects 2 oceans, with one being 16 feet higher than the other. Think of it, the Pacific and the Atlantic. Think of what that is. You're going through dikes and canals. Amazing what they did. It was really a wonder of the world. We gave it away for nothing. But we didn't give it to China. We didn't give it to China. We gave it to Panama. We're going to take back the Panama Canal. In a matter of weeks, we have restored America's pride, America's confidence, and America's spirit. According to a brand new poll from Rasmussen, the number of Americans who believe we are on the right track now exceeds the number who think we're on the wrong track. This is the first time in 23 years. That's hard to believe. And we had one poll where we're at 81% right track, wrong track. I guess it depends on who, but that one poll, because Rasmussen's been a good poll, first time in over 20 years that we've had a positive number on that. That's great. That's great. November 5th, 2024 will go down as one of the most important days in the history of our country. I'm pointing to Mike Lindell. That man suffered. That man suffered. The FBI thugs went up to him and they took away everything he had. He suffered. And Mrs. Lindell, was a great guy. They went after him. It was just terrible. This was a vicious weaponization of your government. But he's all, I'll tell you, he stood up. He's all man. He stood up strong, and nothing was going to faze him. And I want to thank you on behalf of everybody, Mike. You put up with a tremendous amount. And he never changed his mind. He said that election of 2020 was rigged. And he's more of a believer today than he was even 4 years ago. But now it's okay to say it, Mike. Now it's fine. Now, that's why, you know, when it comes to a day where you can't challenge crooked elections, we've got a real problem in this country. And as of January 20th, 2025, the dark days of high taxes, crushing regulations, rampant inflation, flagrant corruption, government weaponization, and total incompetence, those days are over. They're over. But we cannot stop now. We're going to push forward every single day. In the immortal words of that great American hero, Captain John Paul Jones, I have not yet begun to fight. And neither have you. So together for the next 4 years, We are going to stand strong. We are going to work hard. We are going to fight, and win. Thank you to CPAC. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Mercedes. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. God bless America. Thank you very much. God bless America. Thank you.
There we go. Good evening. Welcome to Ben Leo Tonight. And what an introduction from the man of the moment, President Donald Trump there, speaking at the CPAC conference in Maryland in America, praising, and this is crucial ahead of Keir Starmer's visit to Washington next week to speak to Donald Trump, praising Reform UK leader Nigel Farage for, quote, taking the UK by storm. A litany of other commentary, which we'll get stuck into now with my panel. Joining me is Paul Rich.